Hello, hello, truth seekers all over the world. This is Matthew from Back to the Covenant. Hope you're having an amazing day. And for everybody that keeps Sabbath, amazing Sabbath. So Shabbat Shalom to everybody that keeps Sabbath out there that's watching this. So this is going to be a very fun, hopefully educational stream today. So I'm blessed to have Morgan and Curtis on here with me. So these are two believers that came out of the New Age and started keeping Torah. So it's really cool. I have a female and a male perspective on the same stream as we discuss this topic. So let's do ladies first. Shalom, shalom, sister. How you doing?
Shalom. Shabbat shalom. It's Saturday, right? Yeah.
Yeah, she put the Shabbat in front of it. All right, so we got the one person from the States and then another person outside the States. Curtis,
from
what's
Canada.
up, brother?
Shabbat shalom. Good.
I have that fancy coffee up there. So make sure to I have their YouTube channels in the description. So please go subscribe to both of their channels.
Yeah, do
You
that.
know how it works. So I have a short presentation, but first I want to, whoever wants to go first, I'd love to hear y'all's, I guess, like a short version of how you got from the New Age to keeping the Torah. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't care, but ladies first.
That's fine. Okay. So I grew up Southern Baptist, but I also at the same time had some like occult stuff going on because I had an uncle who visited one time. I was 8 and he brought an astrology book with him and he introduced me to astrology and he left the book there on purpose or by coincidence, who knows. But so I got into astrology hardcore and everyone at church said that was, that's Satan, that's the devil. But I couldn't understand that because I was just reading it and it made sense to me and I couldn't understand why it was bad or wrong. And it helped me understand myself. So it was just weird to me that people were so against it. But I got really into church in my teenage years. I was all about, youth group and church camp. And so I had the God Jesus t-shirts and stuff. And then somewhere in my teenage years, I went way sideways and I became best friends with a Satanist. And that's when it got really interesting. And I ended up becoming a witch. Did some psychic medium stuff, tarot cards, astrology. I would, cast the astrology birth charts for people and I would do readings for people and I would freak people out because I was really good at it. And then it turned into summoning demons with my friend. And eventually I started doing some study on my own, like, kind of conspiracy theory type stuff about folks mostly. And when I started reading in the ingredients of those, it was not hard for me to see from my spell books that I had that these were literally potions and, not like surface level, love potions. These are like black magic, dark stuff kind of potions. And that really woke me up to what I was doing. So I was like, well, if I'm against that so hardcore and it's the same thing, then suddenly I found myself being against exactly who and what I was. And I knew I had to become something that I could stand for. And that started the journey of the shape of the earth and the Bible and God and Torah.
Woo, baby. Awesome. That's cool.
That's a quick synopsis. I don't know if you mentioned what age were you when you picked that book up? You said your uncle left?
The astrology book, I was 8.
Wow. Before 10, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Your turn.
All right,
Mr.
pass
Curtis.
the mic. Canada.
I didn't want to interrupt before it was my time. And I'm polite because I'm Canadian, so I have to, make sure
that's
that
right.
everybody
Yeah.
knows, right? So yeah, my name is Curtis. I have Subductive Offensive. That's my YouTube channel. The name is basically based off of the idea that the things that I've learned throughout my journey in this world started from basically at like 14 years old. That's when I kind of left the evangelical church behind. My mom wanted to really push the idea of Benny Hinn and Creflo Dollar and Joyce Meyer on me. And I realized just intuitively that they're all full of crap. And so I thought that was like all Christianity in general was those people. And so when I was talking to my mom about the Bible, she wouldn't be able to explain, the stories and how they actually connect and how this guy 2,000 years ago has anything to do with my life. And so I just kind of left everything behind like almost immediately. And that's kind of when I started the journey of I knew that there was objective truth that governs reality. I knew that something bigger than myself was out there in some way. I just didn't know, like something created everything else in a sense. So, but I didn't know what that was. But unfortunately, the fact that my mom, she told me straight up that like she loves her God more than she loves me. That kind of like, especially as a kid, I just wasn't able to process how that's actually a good thing. And so I was like, well, I hate Jesus. I hate God. Like what they, you know, this imaginary individual took my mom away from me. And so I had trouble with love issues most of my life. And that kind of led into addiction issues. So along with the new age is also the addiction. So that's the theme of my life. It was addiction to women. In terms of relationships, I was never like the whore of the group or anything like that. And then after that, it was video games, like escape into the video games, and then like take on the characters' actions and theme and background, and like just because I wanted to escape my world. I did not want to be in this sober state of consciousness. And then after that, it was beer and just like alcohol, and then a little bit of cocaine. Unfortunately, those both go hand in hand. Around after a little bit of high school. And then I was the party guy of like going around and like cleaning up beer bottles and cigarette butts, and never really able to enjoy myself because I never really actually had friends. I just had people that would like hang out because they all had the same addictions together. And then after that, I kind of like went around a little bit of trying to see what exactly my life was all about, who I was. It didn't help that I had diagnosed ADHD at a young age, about I think it was like 14. And so, and my story is not going to be chronological. It's always, all over the place. Like I am.
Yeah.
But I'm still, it's not chaotic. Like you can still make sense of it. It's just, all over the place.
Same.
So anyway, with that ADHD diagnosis, that's when the doctor basically told my parents that I was broken because I have a disorder, right? And I needed medication in order to function properly. So at that point I was like, oh, okay. So I anything that I do with my friends, my family, I can't please them. I can't be better than them. I can't be even like close to like who they are and what they do. So I'm like, well, I'm just gonna be like a garbage man for the rest of my life. That's like gonna be my, aspirations, to grow up and be that guy. And so, and dad, my dad, he told me, he was like, it would be okay if you aspired to be a garbage person. And it wasn't an insult. It was just like, he understood. He saw that like I didn't have any confidence at all in myself. So that kind of like was the linchpin and the theme that kept me going into like, okay, so the whole idea of me not knowing who I was and me being broken and all this. But the moment I took, and I'm not condoning LSD, okay? This is a personal story. We all have personal stories. We all have different things that somehow, for some reason, even though maybe like they're not morally or even legal, but they, affect our lives and can help us out in other ways. So anyway, for me, 23 years old, I took LSD for the first time. I had an ego-death experience where I was just consciously aware of my surroundings, but yet I could not remember my name. I couldn't remember anything about myself in terms of, where I was located at the time. I forgot like country I was in, like it was everything. And so when I realized that I was still aware, I was still alive and present, but I no longer had depression, anxiety. I was no longer like self-conscious of myself. I was just aware of my surroundings. So then that was the moment where I realized, oh, okay, so I'm not just, broken and like ADHD brain kind of thing. And there's like more to who I was. And then I realized, oh, I could be whoever I want. And so that's where, after lots of psychedelics, going to go through the process, I ended up in rehab, lots of steps where I thought I was God for a bit. Would go around trying to be like Jesus in a sense of like thinking that like the whole, I'm not sure if you've heard the story of like the bull crap history of Jesus, the mushroom, and like him apparently giving during this the dinner or the supper, he was giving mushrooms to his disciples. And anyway, it's basically like a psychedelic trip for them all. It's ridiculous.
What?
Ridiculous. Oh yeah. It's up there with Jesus and going over to India and learning from the gurus kind of thing.
And those holy pictures with the halos, they try to say that it's a shroom cap.
Exactly. Yeah. Ridiculous. But anyway, to fast forward.
That's cray.
Oh, bro, it's crazy. Yeah. There's a lot of crazy stuff. But anyway, to fast forward.
We're going to get into it.
Yeah, we're going to get into it. Yeah. The psychedelics led me to the new age of like putting away the drugs and replacing them with lots of really interesting books about stuff about consciousness and death and like rebirth and all of this. And I was obsessed with death because I was a Scorpio. I believed in the whole zodiac thing. So anyway, long story short, that led me to getting into cosmic civilizations and thinking that I was an alien from another planet with an indigo child. That was the marker that I had on myself, because as a person with ADHD, you type that in and it's like, oh no, your superpower is that you actually have these abilities that are like, psychic and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, well, that's a lot better than being broken. Well, I'm going to go with that one instead. And so, yeah, that led me down a path of stupidity. And I'll continue on after when we get into it. But yeah, that's a little small breakdown, hopefully.
You get plenty of time to share stories.
I felt like I was on a timer, so I was like doing like the auctioneer, like.
No, you good, dude.
What you said about addiction, like I never really thought about it, but like I've never met someone in the New Age who wasn't struggling with some sort of addiction. And see, the goal is like the enemy comes in and they get you when you're young, because you have to be broken. Because if you don't believe lies when you're a whole person. When you're still whole and complete, you have to be broken. That's because that opens you up to lies, and that's where it all starts. Probably, but addiction, I can relate.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that. I mean, I haven't been in New Age like y'all, but I've researched it a little here and there over the years. But yeah, that's an interesting little tidbit about the addiction. So, all right, I got one more question for both of you, and then we'll get to my presentation. This is a fun question. So since y'all came out of the New Age, you understand the power that the enemy does have.
Yes.
What would y'all say if a believer that accepts scripture, walks in Torah, so on and so forth, comes up to you and says, I don't believe Satan and demons are real? How would you respond?
You asked me this question already, and I didn't have an answer then, and I don't have an answer now.
Yes, you do. Just do your best.
Let me dig deep. Okay, you dig deep.
You got this.
So basically, the first thing and I've always kind of like, this is part of how I was able to discern like truth from lies, is I was always looking at what the enemy was doing. And so like, if that person's coming up to me, it depends on like where they are in their walks, like spiritually. It doesn't have to be with Christ, but just in general of like, have they looked into like September 11th? What are their thoughts about that? Do they believe that the Americans like went to war for, normal everyday purposes of, trying to find weapons of mass destruction? And if that's the case, then, well, obviously they're probably not going to believe in Satan and demons and all of that. But if they have believed in some of that stuff, if they think that their government is not trustworthy and all that, then there could be an aspect of them to consider the fact that there might be something more going on than just the physical side of reality. If that makes sense.
Yep.
I think if I was going to give
before you answer, Morgan, hold on. Before you answer, I really appreciate your answer when I interviewed you. I don't know how long ago it was last year. Actually, it was that little clip. It's like a minute and some change. That's the first video I have on my spiritual warfare playlist, FYI. So it is a good answer.
There you go. Encouragement.
Well,
there you go.
If I was going to give them advice, like if they were trying to see demons and trying to see demons and Satan in things and in the world, and I was trying to like tell them where to start, I would definitely tell them just to start digging into the government, following the money, following the trail of children that seem to be missing, the number of children that seem to be missing. Look into the things they're trying to hide. Like, what's the mainstream narrative? Move it to the side and look beneath it and look at what's going on around it that they're distracting you from. And eventually they're going to realize that all these strings come together at one point, and Satan is that one point. It has to be. And if someone was going to tell me, well, I just don't see Satan, I just don't see demons, I would tell them that they're probably explaining it away because they have a mindset and they don't want to see anything outside of that mindset. So they're going to explain it away. They're going to explain things away as mental illness. They're going to explain things away as people just being bad, inherently bad, and coincidences. Every time someone says they don't believe in the spiritual world, they're a coincidence theorist. They are. They call us conspiracy theorists. They are coincidence theorists. Absolutely. If you ask them, everything just is. Just because, it just happened that way, like whatever. All of them are that way.
Yeah, big time.
All right, so let's keep those answers in mind as we jump into my presentation.
Well, just one thing, like I would say that, like also, I'd say also just like the fact that like if you look up Alice Bailey or Helena Blavatsky from the Theosophical Society, and like how, well, for example, Alice Bailey is linked to like the United Nations. And so it's like, okay, so you believe in the United Nations, like they're like a really powerful organization and they're pretty mainstream. There's like a massive building in New York City. So like then you basically connect Alice Bailey to the Theosophical Society, read her book, Helena Blavatsky's Sacred Doctrine. She literally says right plain there that Lucifer is the light bringer. Like it's just like bam. So there's not really much hiding it. They don't hide themselves. They just,
well, that reminds me, Aleister Crowley would be a good person to look into as well. If you really don't believe, if you really just believe this is all just human nature and this is just how humans are, Aleister Crowley perfectly brings so many things that are prevalent right now, like particularly right now, that people are realizing is going on, particularly like with children. When you start to look into Aleister Crowley and you see that he has all these same things going on, but he's also channeling demons and he's drawing pictures of these demons, and it's like I feel like that's he's a perfect connector between like what's going on at the hands of humans and where it's actually coming from demonically.
100%. Yeah, he's the guy that basically popularized the idea that you can use sexual ritual magic. And of course, the sacrificing of a young child in order to gain power and connect with demons. So yeah, good stuff. Don't want to get this stream censored. I don't know. This is on YouTube, right? So
stream cut. We're done.
Not keep name dropping. No man. Don't speak that. Words are powerful. All right, let's jump into it. Let me make this thing full screen. All right, so for anybody that hasn't watched the stream that me and my wife did last week, I would highly recommend it. It's just go to the if Tyler or Wendy want to throw it in the chat, that'd be cool. But it's on the spiritual warfare playlist, and we talked about some stuff that is super important when it comes to spiritual warfare. One thing we talked about is closing open doors, and so I think this fits really good with talking about the New Age because people are opening themselves up to demonic entities all the time with New Age practices. Some of the stuff we're going to get into. So let's get into it. Let's expose the lies of the New Age movement, shall we? The first scripture is, I think, very appropriate for what we're talking about, is Ephesians 5:11. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove or expose them. So that's what we're going to do for however long we're together. Hour, 2 hours, we'll see. When y'all want to read this one?
Yeah, sure. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20.
So we can see this quite often, especially in Hollywood. Hollywood. So you can see, I mean, if you've watched Hollywood movies and I've watched them most of my life, I don't get into it now, with the rare exception of just educational purposes. So, but I mean, for a very long time, but it's super in your face now. So magic, evil, the occult practices, they've been accepted as good, like we saw in Isaiah 5:20, for a really long time in our society. So, I mean, Harry Potter, do we really need to say anything about that? I mean, super demonic, satanic. I remember
it's a religion of itself.
Yeah. I remember I watched. So I made myself when I was living, man, this was like probably 12 years ago. I knew it was evil. And where I was living at the time, I think we had cable, which I haven't had in forever. And so I was flipping through, and I think we had a movie channel or two. And I was like, is that Harry Potter? So I sit there and I could barely make it through 20 minutes. Like, I just felt how demonic it was, and it troubled my spirit. And I was like, okay, turn it off.
Yeah, I bet.
And so a movie that's actually coming out, I think it's the 28th of this month. So if you're watching this in the future, June 2023, is Sympathy for the Devil. So this is a new movie about to come out. I watched the trailer yesterday, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Gotta see that.
Blatantly in your face. And then good old Frozen. That's made like 1.3 billion. It's got a lot of occult stuff in it. So I don't know if y'all want to address any of this.
I was super into Harry Potter growing up. My grandpa wouldn't let me watch it. He said, that it was witchcraft and evil, but my mom, she would take me to theater so that I could see it. And I saw every single one.
Yeah, that's why I call it like a religion in and of itself. Because I remember like being a kid and going on the bus and like seeing the kids with the glasses or whatever in the front, just reading their Harry Potter books, and it's like, man, like just that one alone is like its own thing. It's crazy.
Yep. And sadly, even people that walk into or believe in scripture will put this kind of content in front of their kids and themselves.
That's insane. That doesn't make any sense.
I have to admit, Harry Potter was hard for me to break away from because it's legitimately entertaining and it does offer opportunity to get really invested in the characters. The storyline is interesting, and it's like even outside of the fact that it's witchcraft, it's just a well done compilation of movies. And so you have to remind yourself, as a believer, that this just isn't really what you should be spending your time looking into and watching. And so I did have to very sadly, lay down Harry Potter, but there's better things for us than Harry Potter.
Yep. The one that was tough for me was Star Wars and some of the Marvel movies. Those were tough for me to stop watching because I realized there was witchcraft all over there too. So I'm like, I gotta quit watching them.
I had to step away from Spider-Man because I started, after seeing demons, I started to realize that Spider-Man is just a demon. They move the same way, they look the same way, they sit and climb and hang upside down the exact same way.
Yeah, that's
and a lot of people don't know that because a lot of people don't actually visually see demons, but I have for years and years, and that is what they look like.
Yeah, for me, like it was always Lord of the Rings. Like that was, and that one's a strange one because like J.R. What is it? J.R.
Rowling.
Yeah, Rowling. Yeah.
Rowling.
No, it's the Tolkien. Sorry, the Tolkien universe. And anyway, it still has that like element of like good and evil. But when you really look into it, so Gandalf's a wizard, so it's like magic using good magic and bad magic, and that's what they kind of push in the New Age movement. It's like there's good white magic and black magic, but really it's all just the same thing. It's Gnosticism as well too. It's just confusing people, twisting on its head.
That was how I justified it. Was my friend would do really, really dark stuff that just really went against my own personal moral compass. But the stuff I was doing, there was literally a section in the spell book that it has light, gray, and black, or I would say dark. And I stayed in the light and the gray areas.
That makes sense. Yeah. And like it says in the scriptures that Satan will come as an angel of light, and man, the deception, how he kind of weaves it. Like I don't know, Morgan, if you've heard or seen the Great Awakening like chart. It's like an iceberg, and then it's got underneath it, under the water, it's all of these different topics that are linked together, and like that's like Akashic records and like remote viewing and astral projection, all that weird stuff. But we'll get into that.
I think I've seen that.
Crazy.
Yeah, you sent that to me. That was like my mind was mush trying to look at all that because it's so much, dude.
I know, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
So what's all we just looked at in mind about Hollywood and the push of magic? This is the command in the Torah we should keep in mind. So I don't know who read last. You want to read more?
Don't make me read. Don't make me read live.
Curtis
don't do it to me.
Do you want me to go?
Okay, I will. My goodness. All right, so Deuteronomy 18, 10 through 4, just a few verses. Let no one be found among you who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or one who practices divination, or a user of magic, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, a medium, spiritist. We're checking all the boxes here for the witchcraft. Or one who calls up the dead, necromancer. For whoever does these are an abomination to Yahweh. And because of these abominations, Yahweh your Elohim drives them out from before you. Be perfect before Yahweh your Elohim. For these nations whom you are possessing don't listen, I think, to those using magic and to diviners. But as for you, Yahweh your Elohim has not appointed such for you. So this is a very serious command in the Torah that we should take serious as believers. So I would say that if you put a Disney movie like Frozen or any other satanic witchcraft-filled movie in front of your kids, you're breaking this command. So would y'all agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, when
I think you need to be. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I just felt right at the very beginning of it, I just recognized that verse because that was one of the first ones that I read, and I was like, oh, this was before that I joined the faith, but it was in the scriptures, and it was from Doreen Virtue. That's actually the one that kind of helped me get out of the New Age. And when she shared that one, it was like, yeah, oh, okay. So I was literally working for Satan, and I was like empowering people to like be their own gods, like Satan in the garden. So it's like, yeah, I deserve to go to hell. I deserve all of that. And yeah, it was a lot to take, but it's like, oh, okay. The New Age isn't about feeling good all the time. It's like, no, guilt is like something that you need to experience if you've done wrong. So that makes sense. Anyway, yeah.
I was a teacher for a long time, like 7 years. And we used to play, Moana and Frozen and all the princess movies for the kids. And, back then I wasn't really a believer, so it didn't really strike me. It wasn't really in my face like that it's kind of just the same movie over and over with these different faces. And, but after, coming to God and Torah and repentance, it's just like, can they make a movie without this crap in it at all? It's just like all of them, it has to have magic. Just that's the one sole common theme is magic is in every single one of them.
Yep.
Hey, The Rookie didn't have magic in it. It was about baseball.
98% of them have magic in them.
It's
I agree. I'm just messing with you. Yeah, especially the animated ones. They promote some kind of.
Oh yeah.
My guilty pleasure actually is the movie Tangled. It's about Rapunzel, and
interesting.
But there is magic in that. There's a magic flower that gives magic powers, and the magic comes from the sun.
Right.
And so it's a sun worship situation, and it works like adrenochrome actually because it makes the witch young.
There you go. It's like Monsters Inc.
But I don't know. I love that movie so much for some reason. It's my favorite like recent Disney movie.
Yeah, I actually still watch Disney movies, but for a different purpose. Like I never watched them before, I didn't care, but now that I know like how popular they are and like all these children are involved with it, I want to know like what they're doing, like how they're actually putting these messages out there. And one in particular, you actually did a video, and I never watched it, but Enchanto, and the scene, you probably picked up on this one. It's when, I'm not trying to spoil the movie or anything for anybody that's probably not going to watch it on this stream, but it basically she goes into the wall and she finds her cousin, and her cousin's like trying to recreate this like stage play with rats. And basically part of the theme or the story is like that he's in the woman rat is in love with her cousin. And it's just like the way that it's brought up is like very like he's going so fast with his words, and you in a second you'd miss it, but it's there and it's subliminal. It's like your subconscious will pick up on that. Yeah.
Wow.
I actually don't remember that. The part that stands out to me was there is actually a scene where one of the cousins, he takes sand, it's either salt or sand, and he makes a circle. And he sits in the circle with candles, and he actually starts channeling, and his eyes turn green, and he actually becomes possessed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's in your face. All right.
Is that an animated movie you're talking about?
Yeah.
In Kanto.
Wow. I think it's Pixar or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like what Curtis does, but a little bit, the volume is turned back. So in 2020, me and my wife got delivered of entertainment addiction. So we really pulled back the reins on Hollywood movies. So what we do now is super rarely we'll watch one for not entertainment, but research purposes only. And I'm very careful about what I watch. Like I've overcome a porn addiction in the past. So if the ladies are showing their stuff, they're goods, Matt's not watching that one. If there's a ton of F-bombs, Matt's not watching that one. So
definitely not.
I will watch stuff without that to kind of see how they're programming people, kind of like what Curtis is talking about. So I do have a question I want to throw out there, see y'all's perspective on. So would y'all say that the New Age has a little bit of truth that's mixed in, and that's what brings people in?
Yeah.
And then they just take it in the ditch and take it to satanic stuff, evil and darkness.
Like I would say like 60-70% truth, the rest lies. Honestly.
Wow.
I personally would say less of it is truth. It's the more you find real truth, the more you realize that what you thought was truth is not truth from the New Age. But like at first I would have said that amount for the New Age, but it's been several years now. I'd say maybe like 30% of it is true.
Yeah, the reason why I say that for me is like, like I said at the very beginning, in the background, it's like New Age concept is like an umbrella term to describe like a lot of stuff. It's just basically anything that's like not of the creator, and it's the deception, which is a lot of things. But the whole iceberg and like all of those topics, because I got into the Q movement, and like the Q movement has a lot of truth in it, like with the children and like adrenochrome, the dumbs, all of that. And so that's kind of the route that I took with all of the New Age, and then of course cosmic civilizations like the Palladians and Lyrans and all that, and channeling. So yeah, they basically shared a lot of stuff to kind of get me through the door with the New Age, thinking it was true, and they had government political stuff backing it up as well. So it was very deceptive.
Yeah.
It's actually a hard question to answer. Like the more I spend time thinking about it, I mean, it isn't really an issue of if it's true. It's an issue of is it wicked or not.
Right.
It is true, but because I mean, like the spells are real. They really work. They really do something. So technically, that is true, but it's wicked. You know. So a lot of it is technically true. You shouldn't be messing with it.
Yeah, that's a real good clarification.
Yeah, Satan and demons have power, so that's basically what you are saying.
Yeah, they certainly do.
All right, so here is a quote about the New Age. It'll pop up there. All right, there we go. So this is from a website, pastorvlad.org. So, quote, the New Age movement or New Age spirituality, and that's something that's deceptive about it, is they label a lot of New Age stuff as just spiritualism or spirituality. And so that's like goes under the umbrella of what
that's right.
Curtis was mentioning earlier. Is a conglomeration, say that 6 times fast, of beliefs rooted in Eastern mysticism. Things ranging from meditation to occult practices can all fall under the umbrella, there we go, of New Ageism. And then further down on the same article, it says, this is very interesting. This is number 2. He has like different points on the article. Number 2, you can become God. Quote, the goal for those in the New Age is to remember that every human is God, but they have forgotten their divine nature. The path of enlightenment is, if followed, will guide them to remembering their divine nature. Those who believe can choose to go through a spiritual evolution to transcend the reality they live in and revert to the point of consciousness at the Big Bang through transcendental, that's a tough one too, meditation. By doing so, they'll reach or realize they are God or the source consciousness. So here's a question. Does it sound like anything in scripture that we read? I think I
think so. Maybe spiritual super bodies.
Or 3, maybe.
Like Elohim. Yeah.
You want to read this one, Curtis, since you don't want to read?
And the serpent was more crafty than any beast of the field which Yahuwah Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, is it true that Elohim has said, do not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we are to eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said to the woman, you shall certainly not die, for Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. Genesis chapter 3, verse 1 through 5. Yep.
So it sounds like
it all begins.
What was going on back then is pretty similar to New Age philosophy that we see today.
It's just repackaged.
Yeah, like witches and mediums and psychics. They some of them are aware that they're working with spirits. They wouldn't be quick to call them demons. They're going to call them either spirits plural, or they're going to call them spirit singular, because they believe that we are all collectively one spirit, and that we are God in separate bodies, and we are God experiencing himself in different facets or whatever. But most witches, mediums, psychics, whatever it is that they're doing, they think they're doing it of their own power. They don't believe that there's like this big, high and mighty God that is over them, and that he created everything and he's the ruler of everything. They believe that we all have this God power of our own within us. And they believe that of their own power, they are making these spells work, and they are seeing into the future with these cards and whatever, the crystal ball, whatever it is that they're using for divination.
Yep. Yeah, and well, like the New Age, it's funny, like in the New Age of like the old is like, tarot cards and like meditation and yoga and stuff like that. But technically New Age is like visualization. Like if you're actually like trying to visualize a future event or something like that, that's actually you dipping into that pool of like becoming your own god. Because like it's so deceptive on that level. Like it's just like a tiny little, or meditating, like, you know, just emptying your mind and just trying to not think of anything is like you literally, you know, trying to use your power and without God to aid you. So yeah, it's all very, very deceptive.
Well, I guess I have to admit, after what you just said, that I guess I was part of the New Age and didn't realize it, because
Exactly. Yeah, most people are. They don't even realize it.
years ago, I was into different form. I mean, there's nothing wrong. Let me say this disclaimer before I share. There's nothing wrong with building wealth and stuff like that. So,
of course not.
But I was not in a good place in my heart. I had a spirit of greed. I'll just be real. Thankfully, I would deliver me of that years ago. So I was going after different ventures to create wealth for me and my wife, and even before I was married to her. And so I got sucked into the visualizations, affirmations. Not to say those are wrong if you do them in a certain way, but what we're talking about is you're trying to manifest something that you want. So in the context of that, I think it's wicked. So if you go on YouTube, you'll find 8 hours of I am blah blah blah, and it's to reprogram your mind and all that. So I'd do that, and then I'd meditate. And I realized years later, when I was teaching me about spiritual warfare, that I opened myself up to demons. And I believe that most likely I got some demons attached to me because of those unrighteous, wicked acts that I was doing. And I thought it was something good. That's why this New Age stuff is so deceptive, because you think you're doing something that's not unrighteous, and it really is. And it's going against what we read in Deuteronomy earlier. Absolutely. And so, so I guess I was part of the New Age and didn't realize it after what Curtis just shared. So interesting.
They've repackaged it in a way. Yeah, they repackaged it in a way that, and it makes sense. You know, if you want to get everybody involved in it, you just change the name and, like, you know, make it to sciencey. You know, like it's psychologically going to be good for your mind if you do this thing, and it's got nothing to do with anything occultic or magic or anything. You just rebrand.
They can put it in any box. There are so many things that different people are drawn to, and they can package it like anything that anyone would want. And one way I've noticed lately, online especially, they package it as healing from trauma. They want, especially on TikTok, and I get sucked into it too, I'm not gonna lie. But like, I watch these, you know, therapists, who even knows if they're really licensed or not, but they talk about childhood traumas and attachment styles and love languages. And I do believe there is some truth to that, because I can relate sometimes. Like, they talk about, you know, an anxious attachment style or an avoidant attachment style. And I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely anxious attachment. But just because there's truth to it, what they're really selling behind that is healing. And most of the time, this healing revolves around loving yourself. And it just goes right back to you. You are the focus. You are what's in the middle, and it's all coming from you. You're the one who controls it. You're the one who moves it. You're the one who receives it and the one who gives it. And so essentially that would make you your own God.
Yep. Yeah. It's, I got into the philosophy of, I didn't think it was a philosophy at the time, spiritual, like, principles of the universe, the law of one, which is funny because Aleister Crowley's got his own law of one, but this was based off of Ra material of all things, like Ra, the sun god of Egypt, like Satan, basically. And he gets into the idea of like consciousness and the evolution of consciousness. And so basically I just thought that I was consciousness that will evolve eventually into an alien, and then into a light being, and then back to source intelligence. And anyway, don't want to go fully into that, but yeah. Basically what it comes down to is that you're your own God.
I'll have to say it's very interesting at this point in the stream. So we're about 45 minutes in, and a lot of the slides that we haven't covered yet, they're popping up like crazy in the chat. It's like everybody's looked at my presentation beforehand. All right, I got one for you, Curtis. Who is this lovely lady right here?
Oh, well, I don't have anything against this lady, and I still don't know to this day if she actually, you know, believed what she believed or if she didn't. But her name is Dolores Cannon. She passed away in 2014. She's a hypnotherapist. She started up in like the 60s with her husband, and started off with just hypnotherapy. If anyone doesn't know, it's like the basics of it is that you can, quit smoking or lose weight and stuff like that if you take this person into an earlier part of their life. But she went the extra mile where her and her husband in the 70s, it is 70s, yeah. And anyway, they took this client of theirs before they were born. And there was a full story about that, of like what actually occurred, where they were back in like this woman was back in the 1800s, and basically was in Chicago, and they described the skyline that was nearby, and she had a different voice and mannerisms and all of the details of a person, the characteristics, her accent, everything was changed, and she became this other person from a past life. Because we need to understand, like, I didn't know at the time, but like these are, fallen angels, the technology of fallen angels and the unclean spirits, they have power, and that's the power that they have. Like, they can manifest, these visuals and realities that people believe in their dreams, and they can convince others because of the detail in them. And then also on top of that, Dolores Cannon would go and she would actually research into the history of where these people were. And these people, they would describe the places, like their homes and like the type of utensils they would have and their food, and like with their food, and just like the layout of apartments. And then she would, find the history that would match that, and it would all make perfect sense. So that was the deceptive world of like her going in with past lives from other people. But then she goes in her other books about after death, basically, of like, where does the soul go when it dies? And then it will show basically heaven, and get into things like the life review and all of these, like how everybody watches the television after they die. And it's like this massive screen, and everybody's in this massive, like, it's not even a room, it's just this open plane. And people are just watching their life flash before their eyes. And yeah, it's super deceptive. And I was like totally entranced with all of it. I ended up getting into her program, quantum healing hypnosis technique, where I became a practitioner in hypnotherapy and went to Miami. And yeah, it was stupid. But at the time, I was totally bought into it. So, yeah.
I had an experience where I thought I was dying, and I've had a lot of those, but
Right.
sometimes it's just anxiety. But anyway, so
Was it hypnotherapy? Was it like a
no, I have purposely avoided hypnotherapy. I was just having a good time. I was smoking with my friends, and well, I had some smoke circle friends and I had some real friends, but we were in a big giant circle together. And my friend's dad, he had fallen. He had a head injury, so he was on disability, and he was slow because he had hit his head. He wasn't born that way, but
Right.
all our friends, they didn't really give him the time of day. So I would try to talk to him and treat him like a person, So I would always end up standing next to him because of that. So he would spend his time carving these really nice wooden pipes. So he's like, everybody just come back here and test the pipe with me. So smoking with your friend's dad's kind of weird.
It's different, yeah.
But we're all back there and we're testing out the pipes. And I don't know, just like suddenly I stood up really straight, but
Right.
like I didn't do it, like my body just did it. And I felt my spine just like zoop, and I was just like suddenly very aware of the fact that I was alive. And that's how it started. I felt too alive. I was just like, I'm
Right.
here too much right now. And then I just started feeling very strange, like lightheaded, like I was going to pass out. So I said it out loud, but like no one paid any attention to me. And so I said it again, and no one paid any attention to me. I was like, am I talking out loud? Am I just talking in my head? So then I started like beating my friend next to me. He's like, what is wrong with you? I said, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And so my friend's dad's like, yeah, you look like you're going to pass out, just all casual. And so, they started bringing chairs around and bringing water bottles to me. But I couldn't talk to them or interact with them because the first thing to go, I couldn't hear. It was like this ringing in my ears, and then it just faded off into like muffled. I just couldn't hear. And then my vision went black and white, which was strange. And then after my vision went black and white, I also got tunnel vision. So if I looked directly ahead, peripheral would be like that black and white static on the TV. And then in the middle, I could see, like in circles, I could see clearly, but it was in black and white. And I couldn't hear.
Wow.
And I remembered feeling like I had to try to stay alive. Like I felt like I was being sucked somewhere else. and I was actively struggling to just like stay where I was. And then I started having, it was like movie film, and it was coming from behind me and coming in at an angle in front of my face, and it just like kept like zoom zoom zoom, like memory after memory after memory. And that was when I was like, I think I'm dying, because people always say that, like, your life flashes before your eyes. So that was why I thought I was dying. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, everybody says your life flashes before your eyes. And like some memories would just pass by, but some of them would like blow up and like be right in front of my face, like a projector screen. And I would watch the whole memory all over again, and then it would zip by. And this went on for what felt like maybe like an hour. I have no idea though. And next thing you know, my vision just comes back. My ears just open back up. And I just stood up and I was just like, I'm going to go home. None of us are going to talk about this ever again. I had someone follow me home in case it happened again, you know, on the way. And it didn't. It never happened again. Wow. But from that moment on, every single time I smoked, like anything above mid, like mid was fine. But if I smoked any kind of loud, I would have panic attacks. And it was all after that experience that happened.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah, I had it was just on weed, like marijuana.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a lot of stories, and the next question people ask me is, that was just weed?
Yeah.
I'm very sensitive. That's all it takes.
Same here. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I'm sensitive to weed too, but I could take like 10 hits of acid and be fine. So it's strange how some people are with different things, different substances. But yeah, at the last time I
it never affected me like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Marijuana every time.
Right. Yeah, marijuana for me was
that was laced with
every time.
I was the only one though. Like, everybody else was smoking it. I was the only one.
Wow, that's crazy. Exactly. You're the only one. Wow.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, marijuana, like the last time or every time I've usually taken it, it always puts me in a place where like I feel like very introverted, and I'm an extroverted person. And so anytime I take it and I can't talk to somebody, it makes me feel like I'm actually dying. So yeah, there was a time where I felt like I was in that place. I was just hanging with a friend. We were watching Trailer Park Boys. Not sure if you guys know that show, but it's stupid. And anyway, we were just sitting there watching it. Yeah. It's ridiculous. You're not missing anything. But it's one of those stoner shows, right? Like, stoners watch stupid stuff. But basically, we were just watching the show, and we were sitting next to each other. And you're high when you have to say out loud, I'm like really high right now. You have to like tell them, so that like they're aware of it. And then as soon as I said that, I just couldn't get off my mind. I was trying to watch the show and pretend like I was fine, but I knew that I just told her that I was already high. So I was like, I'm gonna try and pretend like everything is fine, and I'm just gonna watch this show and laugh when people are laughing at the same time, like just to pretend that that's the case. And it got to the point where I was like, I have to lie down on the bed, and I just lied down in a coffin position. And I was like telling myself, because I was paralyzed at that point, I'm like, I told my friend Holly, I'm like, am I dead? Am I dead right now? Because I feel like I'm like, can you take me to the hospital because I'm dead? It's just like, it was ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, that's what weed does to me.
All right, so to bring it back to Dolores, I got a quick video of her.
Back to Dolores. Stop talking about all this weed nonsense.
Yeah, right. Oh my.
There's too many stoner stories, and they're all so funny. Yeah, I gotta tell you guys one, not right now, but one day I need to tell you guys. I got banned from Subway, and that's a weed story.
Oh wow! There you
go. Tell us after we're done with the live stream.
That's definitely.
I could write a book on my stories too as a teenager. All right, so let's check out this YouTube short real quick of Dolores. I don't know how close it was to her passing.
Oh, okay, cool. Good clips. Awesome.
Because so many of us have taken so long to learn the lessons, we're caught on the wheel of karma. We haven't got it. We keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. And you don't get out of anything. You have to take that lesson until you learn it. And you keep coming back with the same people, just playing different roles. You be the husband this time, I'll be the wife. Or you be the mother, I'll be the child. Maybe we can figure it out. But it's the wheel of karma. One of the only things that Jesus came to teach us was how to get off the wheel of karma. We were going round and around and around. We were not moving upward. So he came to show us how to get off of the wheel. Of course, the only way is always with love. Love is the greatest thing there is.
What to watch.
What do y'all say about that? I mean, we could talk an hour on just how off she is. That's not what he came to do. No, he came to show us the righteous example on how to keep Torah. Yes, he showed us love, but wow.
It was that she actually has a book called Jesus and the Essenians, and that was, it's funny, like I read like most of her books, but that was one for some reason I didn't read. But yeah, oh man, it's just difficult.
Yeah, I want to elaborate on what the wheel of karma is, since you mentioned that.
Well, yeah, it's an Indian, and I think it's also Buddhist as well, or no, maybe just Indian. I'm not sure, but anyway, it's reincarnation. It's just the idea that a soul has multiple cycles after it dies. It then is rebirthed depending on how that person lived. If it's if you're good and you do good things, then you'll reincarnate as an eagle or something, right? But if you do bad things, you'll reincarnate as an ant. That's like the basics of it. But really, reincarnation in the New Age, for me anyway, and especially with Dolores's work, she means reincarnation as you have to reincarnate into multiple lifetimes from different people and different backgrounds from all around the world. That will give you the fullness, knowledge, and experiences of what source intelligence was all about, basically. And that gets into the law of one. But anyway, yeah, that's what she based her principles off of, universal principles. It's ridiculous, but it made sense in the heliocentric model. Wow. That's one thing to really consider. Yeah, it was all something that made.
Yeah, that was interesting when I read that quote earlier.
Yeah, it said mentioned that, didn't it?
Sorry, brother. Yeah, that was interesting when I read that quote. Yeah, no, it said Big Bang, but I was thinking, interesting. Right, it didn't have 12 in there, but it had.
Yep.
But they all go together like a peanut butter jelly sandwich. So
that's right.
They're a package deal.
Yeah, they go hand in hand. The astrophysicists, they believe that wholeheartedly. Oh, jeez. But yeah, so Aaron Abke, he used to be, he was actually going in to be a pastor. That was his original thing because his father was, and he was in the school to be a pastor. And his story behind that, basically, he was in the school one day and he was getting lunch and he saw a hobo outside and he was going to go and warm up his lunch and give it to the hobo. But unfortunately, the pastor of the church called the cops on the hobo. And then basically he was like, this is not right. And so he left for that reason. And anyway, he got into mysticism, started off with a book, Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now. And then he just discovered that all of the ideas of Christianity were just, prehistoric and needed to be upgraded. And so, yeah, he followed one book in particular that he got led to was The Course in Miracles, which is like the most blasphemous book for the Christian faith ever created, because it claims that it's Jesus rewriting the Bible because the Bible was saying everything that was wrong, and the Course in Miracles was coming around to correct that wrong think, basically. And it talks a lot about forgiveness and redemption and uses those terms, righteousness and all that. So anyone that's Christian will get led into that very quickly. And it's all about love, and it doesn't, give up any bad things, like any sin or anything like that. It's no judgmental. So no judgmental stuff. So yeah, you totally get roped into it. And then besides that, there was another book called The Law of One, which we talked about earlier. That's the raw material. It's a channeled book. I'm not sure if you guys, probably Morgan, you're aware of that kind of material. Channel material is essentially the idea, or books that were basically told through a human, but given to that human by an alien or another spiritual entity that's outside of Earth, that's trying to give a particular message that usually revolves around
AKA a demon.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. But their particular message was always about the same message that the Theosophical Society and Alice Bailey and Helen Blavatsky push. And that's the idea that the Golden Age, which is basically the New World Order. And it's the idea that aliens are at some point going to reveal themselves to mankind. They're going to give us technologies that will then help elevate our consciousness and bring us up to a state where we're able to merge back with source intelligence and join the planets in the service of Infinite Creator, which is basically Star Trek. where Earth is at a stage in their consciousness of evolution level where they get to the point where they are able to travel through space and time and be able to go to other planets and help them evolve and bring them to peace and love and light with the infinite creator. It's so layered.
Sounds very similar to Mormonism.
Yes, yeah, it is.
No, she didn't.
Watched Mormonism testimonies, and yes, that was a massive similarity. It was interesting. Yeah, so the Law of One material in particular, because that's the thing, like a lot of people, and I mentioned this with Matt when we were talking in the back the last time, essentially that like there's people that like believe in, I'm sure Morgan, you come across people that, believe, oh, energy, bro, and like frequencies and vibrations, and like all you gotta do is like lift your vibration and you're gonna be like, come love and light, and it's gonna be amazing, bro. And you just like, all
used to be me.
Yeah, right. And then well, I can't actually say like that was for me. Like I was the one that was like, oh, I got to do shadow work and I got to like trigger people into like facing their demons kind of thing. But anyway, so a part of that, like a lot of the people that I ran into, they didn't know what they were actually talking about when it came to the New Age. There was all of these like terminology, like terms that they would use, but there was no real foundation of like, okay, what is dimensions? What are dimensions? What is frequency? How does that work? And like for me, and the enemy knew exactly how to get me, because like Dolores Cannon and Aaron Abke, that was like the start of it, and it started to give me the understanding. Dolores was the idea. Oh, okay, so there's consciousness itself isn't just bound in one body; it's also in other bodies from Earth that are not me. So like I'm multiple people, and then on top of that, I was like, oh, okay, so Earth, it's not like just Earth, but there's other planets out there, which makes sense logically because the heliocentric model, there's like a constantly expanding universe. If there's no like life in those planets, that doesn't make any sense. So basically, it fell into play with that. But then the spiritual principles on top of that, the 7 densities of consciousness, that's the video that he really popularized. It's actually taken directly from the Law of One material. And essentially, it's basically describing the origins of the universe and the origins of humanity, where they come from and where they're going, just like the Bible, basically. But it's in a way that goes directly in and ties with the heliocentric model. So I'll just break it down very simply. So it's the 7 densities of consciousness. Density is essentially a time span. So the idea of that is that, and I don't believe this anymore, this is what I used to believe, but the first density of consciousness, how consciousness started out, is that you are the basic elements of the Earth and like other planets, the Earth, wind, fire, and air and water. And basically from that's when consciousness over millions and billions and trillions of years, like Carl Sagan would say, would then evolve consciousness, which is you, into the second density, which is plants and animals. And so after that, after millions and billions and trillions of years, that would be the third density, which would be human. And so human is a very important density level for consciousness to evolve, because it's the moment where you make the choice to either serve others or serve yourself. That actually also goes in line with the left and right hand path of Aleister Crowley's method, and the Satanists and the Freemasons. They all did that same thing as well. It's mixed up with duality, basically. So like good is evil and evil is good. They have to both coexist to like have fullness of life. And so anyway, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you choose the service to self path, you're basically going to be all about yourself and your surrounding people in your area, like your friends and your family, but you use them for your own means. You can steal, you can murder, all that stuff. It's just there's no evil in this spiritual principle kind of thing. And so if you continue on that path, and then you go through all the reincarnation cycles as all multiple humans on Earth, then you get to the fourth density, where you are no longer inside of Earth, but you're outside of space and time. I want to make it very short because it is long to get into it. But essentially, when you get higher in the densities, you're just no longer in the Earth. You're no longer human. you're a light being. And these light beings, if, say, for example, they follow the service to self path, they become demons. And so in this way of thinking, demons and angels are just humans that have evolved past their consciousness level after they developed a certain point. And this also involves the higher densities, gets into aliens, where they have vessels, but then they can use technology to travel throughout space and time. And anyway, it gets into it. But all of the stuff that I was looking into and listening to about secret space programs and all this, it just went in co-tandem with the foundational principles that I learned from books like The Law of One. So it's, like I said, it's very layered, it's very deceptive, and it's very convincing because it's logical. It's logical to like the heliocentric model.
There's one thing you said that sort of reminded me that with the New Age sort of making you to believe that you are God or your own God, people don't really realize it goes, all the way to this also makes you the judge. This makes you a judge. You get to be the judge. And like we were talking about karma, and it's like, or like that you can use people around you for whatever you want. And it just is what it is. It isn't necessarily like a bad thing. And I had read in some books by Aleister Crowley, and not just Aleister Crowley, but that chick, she was like the daughter of this guy. She looks like Taylor Swift.
I don't know.
Do you know who I'm talking about? Oh, darn it. Okay. It's like, there's like the Church of Satan, and she was like the daughter of the guy that ran the Church of Satan.
Oh, okay.
Either she wrote a book or her dad wrote the book. And it said the same thing that Aleister Crowley would say. It starts off by saying like, well, you need to, respect other people. And, there is all this dark magic that you could do. And there are these really horrific ways you can get all this power and fame and money and youth. But it isn't really ethical. It isn't really humane for other people. But, we just want to let you know that you could, and it is there, but you shouldn't. But then, like, you flip a few pages and you keep reading, and it basically says, well, if it's a bad person, then they deserve for you to do that to them anyway. So, like, that's your free pass. Like, if you can deem this person to be a bad person and they're deserving of something like that, then you are not bad or wicked. It's sort of like karma in a way. And that literally puts you in the position of being a judge over all people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. You were the judge, jury, and executioner in that idea that like you're part of source intelligence, but also you are source intelligence. Not like, because also, as Yahuwah, right? Like we have a deposit of the Holy Spirit, but we're not, on that level at all. Not even close. Not until we get our spiritual bodies. But in the New Age concept of it, it's like, you're everything. And it's an ego trip, shall we say.
And it's scary because it's emotion based.
Oh, yeah.
All of it is just how you feel in the moment. You might just be really mad at somebody and decide, you know what, they deserve to be on my altar tonight. It's just like, what?
I'm glad you brought that up because that actually makes me remember about because like there was the Dolores Cannon stuff, then there was the Law of One, but then I came across this vibration frequency chart, which basically uses emotions to kind of gauge what truth is. So if you're feeling like joy and like passion and like, all of the pride, even that's kind of like the middle one. It's basically that you're coming across and you're aligned to source. So anything that you're watching or reading or listening to, that's like making you cry with like, like tears of joy kind of thing. Like that was my barometer to be like, this is true. So anytime that I listen to Dolores Cannon stuff, whatever about aliens and about me being a freaking, star seed from another planet that's come to elevate human consciousness through psychedelics, I believed it because I was crying when I was hearing it. And so I believed in a lot of weird stuff. Very strange out there for sure. Yeah.
So you mentioned levels earlier. Do you want to break this down a little bit? This picture, I know it's not the best, but I pulled it off of one of Aaron's, the guy that was on earlier, one of his YouTube videos. He was talking about it.
Man, I was all about some chakras back in the day.
I actually honestly don't, like I was saying with Matt, like I honestly don't know much about the chakra system. I never really got into that kind of spirituality or New Age stuff. So Morgan, you should probably take this one.
Oh, I painted a whole picture one time, and and it had the colors in order, and it was like I am, I do, I see, I feel, and it was like what each chakra is based around. And the goal is through meditation, through yoga, and through soul searching and reaching enlightenment. You can have all of your chakras flowing together, and this is a whole person. This is a healed person. This is someone functioning at their highest capacity, and this is a person who has reached literal, like, enlightenment in its fullest. So this is like a really high caliber person, and this is someone who is going to ascend to the higher dimension either after they die, or some people would believe that there was sort of like a revelation kind of thing where this earth would pass away and you would either be forced into the higher dimension or the lower dimension. And if you can have all of these chakras flowing together, then you're going to raise up to the higher dimension. And I actually had a friend, I don't know what it's called, but there's like this practice you can do where you go up to a person and it's like this force. And so what you do is you like shove your hands like a punch, and then right before you get to their body, you open your fist up and make like a flat hand, like you're pushing and forcing energy at them. And you do it at each chakra point, and you can literally feel, if you can feel it like you actually got hit, then that would signify that that chakra was weak. So my friend came up to me and he did it, and it's just like and I really did actually feel it. It was my heart and my root. And I do have to say, reflecting on that time in my life, if chakras were real and they do govern what they're said to govern, those would absolutely be the two that would be the weakest at that point in my life. But just because something does exist or something is real doesn't mean that we should be utilizing it. It doesn't mean we have a full understanding. Just because you can look it up and study it does not mean that's the fullness of understanding. And if it is real, cool. I don't see a reason to mess with it anymore. And I'm not going to flat out say that it's not real. I would suggest that there is something going on with that, but that we just really have no idea really what it actually is.
Yeah, I would agree too. I believe that energy, frequency, vibration, all of that is legit. You just look at cymatics, for example, and like we know that like the vibrations affect and frequency affects matter, in different ways. So yeah, there's that. But also too, like even when I wasn't using psychedelics, I would actually have an experience of just sitting in my bed. And I told Matthew this story, and it essentially, do you mind if I get into a little bit?
Go for it.
Yeah. So essentially, yeah. So essentially, I was just downstairs in my parents' basement at the time, lying down, and I was just like basically sitting up in a position where I was like reading, but I it's just kind of dozing off a little bit, and next thing I knew, my body was floating about like about 6 inches off the bed, kind of thing, and I all of a sudden had a view of my body where I could see it. And I knew that I was no longer my body, but I was still aware. And anyway, as I was looking at my body, it started to twist like string cheese in like 2 opposite directions. And I realized that I wasn't dead. So I was like, oh, okay. So like I'm still alive somehow. And then all of a sudden I blinked and I was then in a room which was filled with like pictures on the wall. And it felt like it was like a doctor's office. And I was strapped to this table that was kind of like pushed up like on a vertical lean. And anyway, this like being that looked like of like actual light, and it felt that he was basically love. Like it felt like I was home, and he was basically checking me out to see if there was anything that I needed to be worked on. And so the next thing I knew, he was wheeling me out into this hallway with all these other pictures on the wall. And it was kind of like a dentist office, like in those big dentist office where you go to the office, but like it's a bunch of other rooms, like as you're walking. And so there were other beings. I could sense that they were like me, that were also strapped to these chairs, strapped to these tables. And they were basically being inspected and worked on by these other doctor spirit kind of things. Anyway, so I went to the very end of this hallway. And in one of the rooms, there was like a happy, congratulations, your home party kind of thing with a bunch of other random looking spirits that all had different faces and weird formations. But one thing that, did Matt drop out? Oh, there we go.
I think he's coming back. It's storming here pretty bad. I might end up dropping off and having to log back in at some point too.
But so anyway, I knew that these beings, they were my family, and that I was like coming home to them finally. And they were telling me like, it's so great to see you and all this. And I was just like overjoyed. And like, I just felt like I was finally home. Like it finally made sense of my life. Because it's funny, like in my, human life, I never felt like I was a part of the rest of, my community and people in general. Like I was just a black sheep. And so I finally felt home in this state. Anyway, they were telling me that like, oh, I'm sorry, but you have to go back. There's a lot of work for you to do. And I didn't want to go. And then all of a sudden, one of them kind of stepped out. And then I was blinked in this massive stadium with all these down speakers, kind of like the Dark Knight Rises scene where the stadium's destroyed. And anyway, this guy that looked just like the dude from Misfits, randomly from this UK show I used to watch, he basically tells me that, look, like we love you and we're going to see you soon, but like you have a really important mission that you got to fulfill. So you got to go back. And as soon as I was like trying to protest, it just blinked again and I was back in my body. And I was back on the bed again. And I didn't have any psychedelics or anything like that in me. It was just, when they wanted to contact me, they did.
I had like an opposite experience. I was in a dark place and something was trying to convince me to stay and not to leave. So it's stark contrast. Before I had my son, I was practicing, like, what do you even call it? I would call them visions. I would call them meditation trips. I didn't really have a word. But what would happen is I would, smoke and I would turn on this like, kind of like, the high frequency, like this is going to heal your whatever kind of music.
Binaural.
And whatever they call it. and very, very quickly I would literally go places. I mean, I know that sounds a little bit ridiculous, but it literally felt like I could feel myself come out of my body. And when the visions would be over or the trips would be over, I would feel myself get jolted out of them and back into myself. So I do truly believe in some sort of way I was traveling in the spirit or the astral plane, like whatever it was. And I had a vision or a trip, and it was 1 month or 2 months before I found out I was pregnant. And in the vision or trip, I saw I was pregnant, that it was a boy, and that the delivery started going downhill. They took me to emergency C-section and I died. And then that's what happened. Like a month or two later, I was pregnant. And in my gut, I knew it was a boy. And once I found out that it was a boy, I was like, well, crap. 2 strikes. There's only one left, and it's death. So I get to the hospital, and everything's going great for a while, but he got stuck. And that was where it went downhill. So 12 hours later, he still had not come out. And they said that legally he could not remain in the birth canal because I could sue them at that point if something happened to him. And my doctor knew. I told her it was a dream, but I told her about it. I told my mom. I told my son's dad. Everybody knew about it, and they all blew me off. Oh, whatever. But when it started going downhill and they started talking about emergency C-section, everybody's like, oh, crap. She's been right about everything so far. So I begged the doctor not to take me. And it was off and on, like kind of fading in and out of reality while I was having them, because it was tremendous. The longer you're in labor, the worse the pain is, because the more pressure there is in your body building up. And it's also more dangerous because that's more pressure building on the baby's brain that can cause all kinds of issues. So at this point, I'm in complete agony. I mean, I remembered thinking to myself, how have I not passed out yet? I remembered thinking to myself, man, if I was ever like taken by terrorists, I could totally survive torture and not tell them anything. I was like, if I can live through this, like I can be beaten and not give information. Like I was like, I'm a freaking superhero. But I went to like this weird place where I was in like a bubble, and time was different for me. Like everybody outside of the bubble, they were zipping around and there were like trails behind them, very like psychedelic like. But I was in a bubble where like time was real and existed, but you don't experience it the same way. Like it could have been 5 minutes, could have been 5 hours, could have been 5 days. It didn't matter though. Like there was time and there probably was a way to measure it, but it didn't matter the way that time, but I was aware that on the other side of the bubble that time did matter for everyone on the other side. So then at that point I closed my eyes because when I went to this weird bubble place, I knew logically I was in pain, but I couldn't really feel it so much anymore. So I closed my eyes and I remember kind of like feeling like I was somewhere else. And it's just black. Like literally it's just black. And I remembered feeling this peace. Like I had never felt this peace before. It wasn't like a happy or a sad or like a numb. It was literally just like, imagine just being okay and knowing that you're just always going to be okay. Like truly, truly knowing nothing bad's ever going to happen to you ever again. No one can hurt you. No one can like, you just are, you just exist and that's it. And you're okay with it. Like you're happy with it. So like, that's what it felt like. And then this voice comes to my ear and says, you could stay here forever. And I'm kind of thinking about it. It's like, do I want to stay here forever? And I was like, it is nice here. And it said, all you have to do is let go and you can stay here forever. And I was thinking about it and something in my gut said, don't trust that. Like something in my gut was like, that's too good to be true. That sounds suspicious. Like, but I let go anyway. I was so done with the birthing process. And I was so sure I was going to die anyway. So I was just like, let's just see what happens. So I let go. And instead of dying, I like jolted back into my body and just started pushing. And, but it went downhill, even more so. And she was like, yeah, we're going to take you to emergency C-section. And I begged her not to. She said, you get 3 more pushes. If he doesn't come out, I am legally required to take you regardless of what you ask. Jeez. And I said, okay. So he came out on the very last push and I was spared dying in C-section. And I believe with my whole heart that I would have died in C-section that day.
Wow. What comes to mind for me is like, I didn't realize that, like, you know, how did they know? How did these spirits know that you were, you know, that you were going to be near death? Because like they can't like, you know, predict the future.
I agree. I believe this was a real vision from God, and I'm not suggesting that anyone goes and gets high and tries to get a vision from God. I'm not suggesting that. I think that I was doing something very wrong and that God intervened. And I think he showed me that so that I would know to tell them not to take me to C-section. Because I think he had plans either for me or my son, one of us or both of us. And I think I was supposed to know not to go to C-section. Because why wouldn't I have? I would have been like, yeah, let's go. Get him out of here. Yeah, but because of that vision, I knew it was not the right thing to do. So
wow, what a story.
Obviously, I'll have a plan. Look at you now.
Amen. Amen.
All right, so let's circle back. I just want to say this real quick before we move on. I knew that having both y'all on at the same time, there'd be some really cool stories that really sprinkled and add flavor to the stream.
We're spicy. We're spicy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, spicing it up. All right, now we're about to look at a sacred cow. So let's look at another topic.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we had to go there. Oh man. All right, so let's look at yoga. So I got a couple quotes from it's actually a Hindu website. So it's hinduwebsite.com. So I wouldn't recommend anybody going there, but I had to for the research for this presentation. So let me read this real quick. So quote, yoga is the most important contribution of Hinduism to the modern world. Let's not forget that, because you have like all these people that do what they call Christian yoga. So right here, they're admitting, this is the Hindu website, they're admitting, let me read it again. Yoga is the most important contribution of Hinduism to the modern world. The practice of yoga is a sure way to hasten the process of our evolution into higher beings of, there's that word again, transcendental realms. And then if we read a little further in the website, we're going to look at the Kundalini awakening. So it's the same website, just different part of the same article. The word yoga comes from the root yuj, to yoke or join. It is used to suggest the union of the individual self, the Atman, with the highest self, Brahman. Yoga is the means to integrate the body with the mind and the lower self with the higher self. Through yoga, one can achieve perfection of the physical, mental, and lower selves and prepare one's journey into higher consciousness through the awakening of the Kundalini and other latent powers. And so I would recommend anybody that's a believer and you're still practicing yoga, I would recommend doing your own research. And if you are, then I would recommend repenting, because it's not of Abba. You can't see anybody in scripture doing it, and it's bad. I used to do it, so I'll admit again. I guess that's another way that New Age, for lack of a better term, manifested into my life as a believer, because I did it. So confession time again. Yeah. So let me say something real quick. So have y'all heard of the Truth Unedited channel?
Yeah.
I forget his name. Yeah. So I would recommend, for further research on yoga, go to, obviously we're on YouTube. Go to the search on YouTube and type in Truth Unedited, the truth about yoga.
Who runs the channel?
If you watch it, do what now?
Okay. Who runs the channel?
His name is Ron. He's a tour keeper. I don't know too much detail about him, but his channel is really awesome.
Yeah, there's also
I don't know.
Yeah, Dorian Virtue. She because she comes from the New Age, and her whole thing, her platform is she basically gets people from all the professionals of those disciplines, or disciplines from the New Age, like yoga and personality tests and all that stuff. And anyway, she interviews them, and one in particular she had on truthbehindyoga.com. Very good. She's a very professional, knows her stuff from the yoga world, and she exposes it. And I don't know much about it myself. I never done yoga. I never was interested in that. But yeah, I just remember, and it's still a massive thing that they're teaching kids to do it in schools for breaks in between and stuff like that. And and it's crazy because just on its surface, right, it to the layman, it's it is just stretches, right? It's exercise. How can that be anything bad? But man, it's just interesting.
That's surface level. That's the problem. You got to go a little deeper to get the meanings behind stuff.
Exactly. But it's just fascinating how Satan's devices that he uses are actually just very simplistic in one sense of just meditation, for example, right? It's just curious of how did he come up with that, or is that one of the tools that Yahuwah allowed him to have influence over in that way, just so it could be that deceptive for people, and you would have to get them, you know what I mean, to get them to really think about could this be something that would be really harmful to me because I'm just breathing and or just thinking about something and visualizing it. It's fascinating how that works. It's interesting. Anyway, yeah.
Well said. All right, here's another topic that's interesting beyond yoga. What about the healing crystals?
Ooh, I used to wear these.
All right, let's see what you got, girl.
I still have my gauges, and there are people who suggest that I should be getting rid of them now, but I still have them because they remind me of the person that I'm not anymore, and of the person that I don't want to be again. And I believe that it's sort of like a way to hold on to a reminder that it's not I don't think having stretched ears is evil or wicked or necessarily wrong. So I feel like it's a clean, okay way for me to hold on to a reminder of what I don't want to be anymore. But I would have these stones that I would put in my gauges. I actually still have some. I don't use them the way I used to. Now it's just for looks. I don't use them for power or energy or frequency or whatever. But yeah, I used to wear little pendants. I really loved rose quartz because it was all about love. And I remember when I was teaching, the kids would ask me about it, and I'd give them whole lessons. Poor little kids. I'd give them whole lessons on, oh, this is this stone and it does this, and oh, this is this stone and it does that. And I was actually cleaning my room the other day, and I actually found this tiger's eye that just so happens to be sitting on my desk right now. And I remembered that tiger's eye years ago. I went to go take a test, and I remember taking the tiger's eye with me because it's supposed to help you recall. If you hold it while you study and then hold it while you take a test, it's supposed to help you pass the test. And I was converting into Christianity at that point in time, and I sat out in the car. And I was like, I had already prayed that I was going to pass the test and that God was going to be with me, but I was holding that rock. And I was just like, if I take it in, does that mean I have a lack of faith in the prayer? Or is it like I'm just doubling up on my likelihood of getting it right? And I said, you know what? Just leave it in the car. Just leave it in the car. You don't need it. Like, what do you need more? Like, you already prayed to God. He's got it. He doesn't need help from a rock. It sounds silly. Like when you say it out loud, it sounds kind of silly. So so I went in there without the rock and everything was okay. But I don't think they're bad to have, to look at. They are pretty, and that's fine and everything. But I do think there's a problem if you're praying to them, if you are holding certain ones for certain reasons while you're praying or meditating or doing yoga, or if you're trying to heal your body with them. I think that's where the danger is. I think just wearing them as jewelry and saying, "Oh yeah, this is cute and pretty," like that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
agree, 100%.
correct me if I'm wrong. Do some people in the New Age that really believe in it, that they incorporate the crystals into their lives to tap into energies? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. One in particular, part of the quantum healing hypnosis technique. Basically, I was part of a community, and one of the members, Susan Spooner, I think's her name. Anyway, she was a hypnotherapist like Dolores, but she also had another modality that she would use, and she created it herself. She got it from dreams, of course. It's called Talk. And anyway, it would be a board, just like you can actually make a piece of paper of it and then just have letters. It's essentially a Ouija board, but you would have a pendulum, and the pendulum would be typically rose quartz or crystal quartz. And essentially you would just ask, yes or no questions, or whatever answer you wanted, and then basically it would just spell it out for you in that way. The other exposure I had to that, because I never really used crystals myself, I did buy like 2 or 3, but I just never could like make sense or understand all the complexities of what each one did and all that stuff. So that was good for me. But when it came to, I joined, this is a sidetrack, but I joined a Jesus cult. Basically, they were spinning the idea that the main guy, his name, I don't even care anymore. I'm protected. So his name is John Smarty. That's who he goes by online. Place called Source Directives. And anyway, he started off, I watched him in this interview, and anyway, he was talking about all the topics that I knew about at the time. So I really do, I believe at the time that he was like well connected in the spiritual world. So anyway, I went on his site and basically had these coasters, and the coasters had pictures on them, all these different images. And there was over like 200, 300 different images, and each image was able to do a certain thing. So like ADHD busting, or like curing cancer, or curing Parkinson's disease, anything like that, right? Getting rid of depression, whatever. And anyway, what it is that it's basically you take water and you put it underneath the coaster, which has the image on it. And it basically, they said that the image which has frequencies in it, would then go into the glass of water, the water itself, and then you drink it after a minute, and it will then help you in that whatever direction the image said. So it started there, and then I got into his Telegram group and realized that there were like thousands of testimonies from people talking about his equipment that he used, these techniques, and these free hollows and whatever. And they were just so legitimate. He has such a following, and these like reviews and people talking about it. Like they said they cured amazing things. They grew his vegetables massive, like in their gardens, and just crazy stuff. And anyway, so I got into this group that basically said that John Smarty, he was Jesus. He was the reincarnation of Jesus. His name is Sananda Galactic. And he talked to a force called Daddy. And essentially, one of the first things that I bought from him was a pendant, and it had the tree of life on it. And essentially, I didn't realize, but that was actually a talisman. And anytime in that group, I would talk about demons or just like and bad energies or negative energies. I was always getting like pushback for some reason, and now I know why. But yeah, there was that, and then another piece of technology after I bought that, the pendulum. I bought a healing generator. And so it's called a frequency healing generator, and it was this crystal that was see-through, and it's like really well like developed technology. I can't deny that. And anyway, you would put it on a printer, I bought a photo printer, and you put the crystal on the photo printer, and anybody you want healing for, your friend, family, whatever, you get their picture, and then you print it with the crystal on top of the printer, and then the frequencies from the crystal will go into the picture, and it will heal that person.
That's witchcraft.
And yes, it is. I didn't realize that at the time, but
that's basically that's a spell.
Yeah, and then speaking of the spell thing, the next thing that I bought was it was literally called a healing wand, and it was like an alloy metal, like beautiful looking, like incredible, like detailed thing, and it was like a chopstick, but it was literally like a wand from Harry Potter. And the whole idea behind it is you go out in public and you go, bam, like, bam, you heal that, bam, you heal this. And you go into grocery stores and like touch the food and everything like that to get, oh man, I was into it. And I thought all of that was, yeah, bro. Yeah. It was nuts. And anyway, yeah. And we would get on sessions with each other. We would be called Jedis. And he had these Jedi webinars. It would be everybody on a Zoom call. It would be 2 or 3 hours long. And these people that were like senior citizens, like you could tell that they were like, hard up. They just, they had a lot of stuff going on. But I just thought that they were just like me, were like chosen. And I was like, in $15,000 worth of debt and just like, like living off of my credit and all of this. And it was just ridiculous. But anyway, those 3 hour sessions, we would just pray for people and say about how to like think of a person in your mind. Okay, all right, we're gonna fix his leg, so we're gonna heal the tendons in the leg, and all of the blood will circulate through the whole body and all this, and then it's done. And then as soon as you go like that, that means that the intention of your mind to go boom shows that daddy is working behind the scenes, and he'll completely heal that ailment that person has. And we did that with countries, with like world leaders, to like stop wars and heal the children, everything. It was insane.
It sounds like a Pentecostal church I visited last week.
Pentecostal church. Yeah, so that was something else. All
right, so let me read a quick quote about crystals. So if you go online, whatever in search engine you like, you type in wearing crystals benefits, you'll probably find this time.com article. So let me quote part of it real quick. Holding crystals or placing them on your body is thought to promote physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. Crystals supposedly do this by positively interacting with your body's energy field or chakra. I've already talked about that. While some crystals are said to alleviate stress, others purportedly improve concentration or creativity. So that's what Morgan was talking about with the test.
Yeah.
Helping her with concentration.
Yeah, and then they have some stones that are like amplifiers. So like crystal quartz would be an amplifier. So if you had a rose quartz for love and you added a crystal quartz with it, it's supposed to amplify. And I would always have a crystal quartz with me, no matter what else I had. I was all about that.
Hold on, I got to put this on there. This is true. This is crazy. Randy said, Bethel Church sells healing crystals in the gift shop.
Yeah.
Wow.
I actually saw these things and I called them out for what they were, and the creator of them kept deleting my comments. And it was like a company, like a big sponsored company on Facebook, and it was essentially Christian tarot cards. And what they're saying, no, they're just inspirational cards. You just pull one every day, and I'm like, it's a flipping tarot card.
Yeah,
that's what it is. And I mean, literally, they have cards. And so tarot cards, they'll have pictures on them, and the pictures mean things. But there are different kinds of cards that witches use, and some of them are just inspirational quotes. And you can do a reading with cards like that. And you can do a past, present, future. You can, there's all, I had so many different kinds of readings memorized, and there'd be all these different shapes of cards and the orders you would read them in. And you can absolutely do that with these inspirational cards that they had. And they weren't even Bible verses. They were just like kind of like Christian inspired quotes, or you're going to have a great day because God said so, like something like that,
Yeah, that's like, turn the page. You just brought up the Christian Ouija board. That's the thing too. That's it. And it's just insane though. Like, it shows. Yeah, it just shows like how like disconnected the Christian community is from the New Age. To think that like those things they can be incorporated somehow into their beliefs, and it's like, well, also shows you don't know the Bible at all, especially the Old Testament, because you wouldn't be dealing with any of that.
Or you wouldn't be doing any of that.
That's crazy. No, you wouldn't. No. Yeah.
I wonder if Bethel and Hillsong believe in these too.
Probably.
So.
Or teach spirit guides in their congregation.
Yeah.
Curtis, did you ever have a spirit
you want to touch on
animal?
that for a minute?
No, I kind of identify with a Scorpio and like a wolf, just because, I was a loner kind of thing. But besides that, I never had a spirit animal. But yeah.
You struck me as the type that would have had a spirit animal.
Oh yeah.
I had a spirit animal, and I didn't choose. And that's the thing. Like, you're not supposed to choose it. It chooses you. But people will be like, "Oh yeah, mine's like a tiger." Like, okay, whatever. You picked that.
Right,
you know good and well you picked that. But mine was a crow for a long time, and just because of things that were going on in my life at that point in time. And but I do believe that there is power in your thoughts. You can definitely manipulate things around you, not like make things happen, but like whatever you're looking for and focusing on, you're going to start seeing more of that, because you're going to notice it more frequently. So of course, during this period of my life, I'm seeing crows all the time, and I was just like, oh, my spirit animals are here to help me and guide me, and it was so ridiculous.
Yeah, I never had spirit guides or anything like that. It was always, for me, it was always my higher self. I always thought it was just like the higher version of me that's like guiding me through these things in my life. And that's why I would take psychedelics to try and tune into that and then like become that, basically. And I think it was just because like they knew, the unclean spirits knew from the very beginning, because they're studying me my whole life, about the fact that, my mom, the whole idea of loving God more than she loves me, that gave me that like complex of like wanting to be God and be better than my creator. But I didn't know the creator then. It was just like a subconscious thing. But it definitely affected my whole life, and made me realize that eventually that I wasn't. Get into that at some point, but yeah, crazy.
I think love is something a lot of people. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I know what you're gonna say.
Go ahead. You got it, girl.
People in the New Age, if you really listen to their language, they're lacking love, and ultimately that's what they're wanting, and they have not been able to find it in other people, and they are desperately seeking it through themselves, because that's their last resort.
Absolutely, 100%.
Thank you for making that point. That's very important.
Yeah.
So with the spirit guides, so from my basic understanding, it's like a guardian angel guiding you.
Basically, essentially.
Yeah.
Simple explanation.
But they would like worship, well, not worship, but in that same sense, like basically talk to these spirits, try to get them to help them out in their lives and all this. And I guess I'm not sure, but you're not supposed to talk to angels, right? So some
people would make offerings too. They would bring offerings of peace, or offerings of sacrifice, or offerings of thanks, or if they wanted something desperately, they would bring. And if your spirit guide talks back to you, then it can tell you what it wants. And so that's how you get into quite literally, worshiping your own little personal demon.
Yeah, I remember a book from Roger Minot. He was really popular from Little Light Studios. They covered him with The Charming of Darkness, I think. Anyway, he had made a book called, was it Written by Angels, where essentially it was these people that were in a Bible study, and they started to communicate with angels because basically they prayed that they wanted to be more involved and help humanity in some way. And these angels showed up, and they basically over like 4 years got their confidence and convinced them that they were special, and then eventually got them to kill the members of their Bible study group. I think they killed like 2 sisters, I think, from a family. It's crazy.
Wow.
And it's nuts, because the investigation actually has like everything was written down, because it was like a channeled thing where they were writing everything that these angels were saying. And so in the evidence, you can actually, and in the book, it gives you those detailed writings of like what they're saying and how that they were convincing them, and it was man, crazy.
That's
when you
wild.
said like told them they were special, like that's another thing too, is that's another thing these people are lacking, is they don't, as children, they don't feel loved, but they also don't feel special.
Yep.
And that's the main way to prevent your children from falling prey to this kind of stuff. They need to feel loved and they need to feel special. Not necessarily like they're the center of the world, but they need to feel loved, seen, heard, and special. And I did not feel as a child that I was heard or seen. I felt loved off and on. It wasn't consistent. And but I definitely didn't feel special. And that was one way that these demons were able to get to me, was you're special because you can see us and most people can't. There are not very many people like you. And that's how they got me.
Wow.
That's exactly what the movies are sharing with children too. Like it's all about, you are the chosen one, especially Disney. It's like over and over again, to go in your own way, in your own direction. And also like, what was it? Mulan? No, not Mulan. The Moana or whatever that
Moana
was. Yeah, Moana. And she's talking with her grandmother. And after she dies, and she's like this spirit in the water, and like she can only see her, and it's just showing kids, hey, look, you can talk to these, your dead grandmother or whatever it is.
Which would be like a spirit guide, because she was there in the spirit in the form of a manta ray.
Yep.
Guiding her through the ocean. Yeah. So it was like a spirit animal and a spirit guide at the same time.
And that new movie that came out, Elemental, where it's literally the elements of witchcraft, like the basic elements of witchcraft, and it's like these characters that are come alive. So it's like subconsciously programming people.
Let me guess, that's a Disney movie.
Yeah, or is it? It might have been Pixar. Yeah,
it's Pixar. That one.
I haven't seen it. I saw it and I was like, I think I might want to watch that.
I was in theaters and watched it, and I had to walk out because it was so bad. Like in terms of just the writing, and like it was just really like nauseating, honestly. And usually Pixar is good, but that was terrible. Yeah, it was bad. Or maybe personal.
They did one movie recently. Go ahead.
What's that?
No, you gotta
go. Matt, go. Okay, so they recently came out with a movie, and it is not scriptural like at all, but it's called Soul. And,
I remember that one.
It actually was a really cute little movie, though.
It is a cute movie, yeah. I watched that when I was still in the New Age, and I was like, oh my God, the white hats are finally coming out, and they're starting to tell people about the truth of it all. Because that was, I'm not sure if you guys know about that, but the white hats and black hats like fight going on behind the scenes. That was part of the Q movement that I was a part of. And that went along with like when I was watching movies and they're exposing truth. I thought that was like the animators and the people that were the white hats behind the scenes that were working for the good guys, and that they were trying to like share the public these secrets to finally expose everything eventually with the children and Trump, who's saving the kids in the Dumbs Underground, and that John F. Kennedy Jr. is going to come back with Princess Diana. Oh man, that's another rabbit hole in and of itself. Wow. That's ridiculous. But
I'm so glad I didn't go down the Q rabbit hole. I'm so glad.
I never did either.
So since we've been talking about a lot of witchcraft,
yeah. Go ahead. We're all talking at the same time.
You can go, Matt.
Go, Matt. It's your show. Go.
Yeah, go.
Oh my God. I'm letting y'all try to share freely as you can because the stories are awesome. So since we're talking about witchcraft, let's look at another serious command in the Torah about witchcraft. Do not turn to mediums and do not seek after spirits to be defiled by them. I am Yahweh your Elohim. So that's Leviticus 19:31. And so here's another fun topic. I think you brought this up earlier, didn't you, Curtis?
Oh no.
Indigo children.
Yeah, that was me. When I got that diagnosis with ADHD, and like I said, I was trying to find, the positive side of it, the light on the other end of the tunnel. And that's what I came across, is like the characteristics of some of the ADHD also have this in common with indigo children. And then I came across Dolores Cannon's The 3 Volunteers. And that talked about how in the new age, which we were in now, the age of Aquarius coming in from the age of Pisces, which actually isn't legit. Finally realized that all that stuff is stupid. But anyway, the whole idea that the indigo children were the third wave of these kids that were super special and misunderstood, and they're going to come in and teach people through intuition and telepathy and psychic ability to start to broaden the world and open them up to understanding a new way of life. And essentially we were, like being chosen by Satan to usher in this new world order, which is ridiculous now. But yeah,
and with indigo children, you kind of have to believe it. It depends on from what angle you come at indigo children from, but the way that I had learned about it, you kind of had to believe in the globe model and outer space and planets and aliens, because it's essentially you're like a starseed child.
Yes.
You're not really from here.
That's
and you've
right.
been planted for a purpose. And I was maybe 19 or 20. And so when I learned about that, I wasn't really thinking about myself so much as I was my students, because they were 4 and 5 and 6 years old. And I would go into work, and there'd be these little black sheep kids that were just a little different, a little sensitive, and I was like, oh, look at that little indigo child. And I would literally feel like the universe, like I was so special that the universe would choose me to have these children in my class.
Right. Yeah, I've watched the propaganda videos on that, and it was always about, we just have to, these people are misunderstood, these kids are. But that being said, I got to admit, there's something with ADHD. I don't know what it is, but like that's another reason why I always felt different than most people, because I am, in a way, like the way that I, process and think and all of that is very different than most people that I know. So there's something to that. I don't believe in the indigo thing, but there is something weird going on there. I don't know.
I was diagnosed at 13 with that, with acute anxiety and with OCD. And I've overcome the OCD. The anxiety is still trucking along, but it got a lot worse after I got diagnosed when I was like an older teenager and young adult. Now it's probably the lowest it's ever been. I still struggle with it, but it's the best it's ever been in my whole life, probably.
Amen. Yeah, I think a part of it too is just like
I just want to speak life over both of y'all.
Yeah, exactly. But I think a big part of it too.
I was going to say that. Hold on, let me say something real quick, Curtis.
Of course.
Wow, we're talking all over each other.
It's your show.
Are you good?
I think there's a delay.
I just want to speak life over both of y'all. What were you saying?
I think there might be a little bit of a delay.
All right, hold on, let me say it. I just want to speak life over both of y'all. Y'all can be healed of all the stuff you're mentioning. So that's all I'll say about that.
Amen. Yeah, I personally like, and it's strange because like I was in the New Age, but part of the New Age, I got to admit, is that like you're always, and everyone that I met in the New Age was always about self-analyzing themselves, like always about transformation and trying to be better and looking into all the different things to try and work on yourself. So I was able to work through like a lot of that stuff. Like I said, I used to be feeling broken, depressed all the time. I was like whipped by my relationships with women, all of that. And that's not a thing anymore for me. I'm a very confident individual. Even before that, that's the weird thing about it, is that like, I honestly don't know why I was like chosen, by the Father to like be woken up, because I wasn't living a good life when he woke me up. Like I was directly still involved with everything. I was a spiritual coach, trying to empower people to be like God, all of this. And I just got out of the smarty cult of Jesus. So I was getting like, I was felt led to like Jesus of Synod Galactic and all that, but I would call it like metaphysical Christianity. And like, so I was like totally blaspheming directly the Bible and the Father and everything. And somehow he decided to wake me up, and I don't know why. And for a while I was just like, I don't deserve this. I really don't, for what I did. So
I felt that way too. Yeah. When I came out of witchcraft, there's that verse, they used to chill me to my core. It doesn't bother me now, but at first it says, suffer not a witch to live. And I was still sort of dabbling in it at that time. And my friend who was a Christian read that to me. And it was very disturbing to me. It struck fear in me hardcore when she read that to me.
I bet.
And I actually lost my train of thought a little bit when I was thinking about that. So
yeah,
sorry about that.
It's okay. No, I felt that too with the verse. The path to life is narrow, and few find it, and the path to destruction is wide, and many will go through that path. It's a paraphrase, obviously. I'm still not that good at it, but essentially, it's like, oh, okay, I was leading my whole life in this direction. And also the worst part about it is that, and thank the Lord that I didn't actually develop, my spiritual coaching business. I couldn't get off the ground. But I did affect a lot of people, and they told me directly that, I helped them empower themselves and to really, see them for who they were truly and to take control of their lives. And I look back on that now. And when I first, had all that material on my website and all this, my Facebook group that I put money into for ad revenue and all this, and it was just, I deleted all of it in one night. I threw up my crystals. I burned my books, my New Age books. I deleted my website. And I remember I was just like sitting there in my chair and just being like, oh, okay. So like everything that I did up into this point, like, is all for nothing. Like everything that I went through, and had like 2 or 3 hours of just like total emptiness. It was like, what am I going to do now? And I even felt suicidal at that point too. Because I was like, man, nothing to live for. But then basically I felt this overwhelming emotion to be like, drop to your knees, go into the bathroom right now and pray and apologize. And I just wept like a baby. And I was just like, I felt like my heart being like torn out, and I felt guilty, and I wanted to just burn. I wanted to go to hell directly. I felt like that was where I needed to be, because I made too many mistakes and I wasn't meant to be forgiven. And it took a while for me to finally forgive myself. And yeah. And in that time, I spent a lot of time isolated. What's that? Yeah. Yeah. It's a massive change. And the funny thing is, like, I'm just working, as a welder now, and it's just like really normal job, and it's just like average, and I'm super happy and fulfilled. And it's just nice to have just like a basic life instead of trying to like, chase my dreams and be amazing. And you don't have to be, and the scriptures like support that. It's like, you can just, be chill and like do normal things. Like, yeah, it's a relief, to say the least.
I remember what I was going to say. I was going to say that, people like us, you wouldn't think would be chosen or called, but we are. And it's because of what it's because of what we've seen, what we've done, what we go through. We're able to reach people that just, someone who was raised a Christian, has always been a Christian. They don't understand it. They don't get it. Half of them don't even think that it's real or that it exists. So they can't reach people who are just like really out there, because you and I were really out there. So people who are really out there have to convert, because they understand, and they can reach those people much, much better. And I used to struggle with that, feeling like I didn't deserve any of the good promises. And I even had thoughts that like God cleans me up, and that he was going to use me to help other people. But I myself was not going to receive salvation. I was not going to be raised incorruptible. That he was just going to, because of what I had done, he was going to use me for his work. And then when he was done, I was still going to go into the lake of fire. But that's what Satan does, though. He uses you for his plan, and then he completely discards you when he's done. And God shows that's not his character over and over, in the Bible.
Amen.
So.
Amen.
Yeah, and I had to say, watching your transformation videos are really cool. Like, I forget what you called it, moving from the occult to the Bible or whatever. It just to show the pictures of you back in the day to now. That's a really cool transformation. So kudos.
I looked very dead inside. I didn't realize back then that I looked very void in my eyes.
Yeah, you can definitely. I unfortunately I deleted my old social media account because I just didn't want anybody to look at anything on there. But I do kind of regret it now, because it's nice to see the transformation that you went through. But I got to say, like, it really hit like hard for me, like, because I used to, like I said, I had $15,000 worth of debt in the bank and all that, and I basically was forgiven of all of that. I was able to actually get completely free from it. And I just remember, like, anytime that I was blessed, like in the last couple of months, because it's just been blessing after blessing. Like last year was just insane, and like I was just like I didn't want to accept it. I was just like, I don't deserve any of this. Like, why do you, like, there's so many people out there that are so much better than me. Like, why are you, But anyway, yeah, it's a long process to kind of forgive yourself, but I finally got there.
So I got a couple more topics I want to run through real quick with y'all. So
yeah.
Another one. So looks like from my research and I guess my little experience with it and conversing with y'all, that New Age is all about getting to a higher consciousness, and one of the ways people do that is astral projection. So you have any experiences you want to share with that?
Yeah. So do you mind if I start, Morgan?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the way that I like started to understand how that kind of operates is like, first, I've always kind of looked at like big picture things. But that's how I kind of make sense of just everything. And anyway, the dimensions of our world. So the third dimension in the whole New Age idea and concept. And actually, this is in a sense true. Like, it's like the whole Matrix thing, right? Where there's the physical reality that we can see with our five senses. And then there's the spiritual realm. And so the third dimension is that, you know, you're a slave to the system, to the government. You listen to the news, you believe what it says, you just listen to the authorities on television, all that. What you see is what you get. Consciousness is only within the mind. You are only a brain in, you know, a fleshly body. That's it. And then when you die, you die. So, and then the consciousness is just gone with the brain. And that's what science supports. So it supports that whole idea to keep you as a slave in that sense. But then there's the fourth dimension, and that essentially is the gateway to opening yourself up to the spiritual realm. So there's an idea in the New Age of like clair abilities, claircognizance, clairaudience, clairvoyance, all of those. And basically that's where your psychic abilities come into play, where you can talk to other spirits. Some can actually see them, like you, Morgan, like you said. And so you have that intuition that, of course, most people don't. So you can kind of perceive this realm that most people can't. And that's supported also in, like, you know, shows like Stranger Things and all that with Upside Down. That's basically what that is. So then the fifth dimension is essentially where you are merging with the understanding of who you actually are, which is basically part of consciousness, which is God. And so when you get into that state, that's where you're essentially like astral traveling, where you're able to leave your body. And everybody reports the same things when they astral project. Is the same, it correlates with itself. A golden tether of some sort that is strapped to your body. And that if you leave, you know, you're dreaming in that state and you're traveling and you know, flying around your community or whatever, which people report, you're always tethered to this golden string that's attached to your body where you're actually lying down. So basically that's like your tether that keeps you, you know, in your physical body. And if it were to break, then, you know, you would be lost essentially. But yeah, so that's kind of astral projection that's what it comes down to is it's just, leaving your body and doing weird stuff through those dimensions. That's what I got to say about it. But yeah.
I did it by accident a few times. When I was a really young teen, maybe like 14 or so, the first time it happened, I remember this one night I saw this black shadow figure in front of my TV. And then like 2 nights later, I was asleep and I woke up but I was on the ceiling and I was looking down over the room, but I felt like I was really awake. Like, it's not like you're having a dream where like you're the person in the dream and you're seeing it through your own eyes. Like, I felt like I literally had woken up and I was trying to make sense of why I was flying and I couldn't. And I'm looking around and I look straight down and I see myself in the bed asleep. So I'm like, well,
wow,
I'm here.
Yep.
So why am I there? And then I look over and I saw the same shadow figure that was in front of my TV a couple of nights before. I saw it standing over my bed. Have you ever seen the movie I Am Legend?
Yep.
With Will Smith and the zombies. Okay. You know how they would like breathe like this, all like extra?
Yeah, weird. Yeah.
It was moving like that. And it was just standing over me. And it wasn't like touching me or anything, but it felt dark. It didn't feel welcome. It felt like it was waiting for something. And I feel like what it was waiting for was its chance to enter into my body. And next thing I know, I wake up and I'm laying down in the exact position that I was laying in, that I had seen myself in. And my head's like facing this way, but the shadow was supposed to be over there. So I'm just like, you know, nothing was there that I could see at that moment. I don't think I slept for days after that.
Sounds like the Hag mixed with like lucid dreaming or something like that.
It reminded me of Insidious. The little boy was
yeah,
lost in the
yeah.
astral world, and these entities were trying to enter his body because it was empty, and they were all trying to claim it because he was too far away from his body at that point.
Yeah, it's interesting how movies, they will reveal like the spiritual realm and like how spiritual warfare works. Like another one with the astral projection that kind of came to mind was Dr. Sleep.
Right in your face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this one in particular, it was a movie about these gypsies that would capture the souls of children. But essentially, it was like adrenochrome, basically. But it was like their soul essence, and they would put it in a canister and drink it. But part of that film was the protagonist was a little girl who could astral travel, and the gypsies themselves, they could also astral travel and enter into enter into the spiritual world and be able to see where the children sleep at night and stuff like that when they astral travel. Hopefully that's not a thing. I don't know. But that being said, there is dark energy, and that they can do stuff in the spiritual world. So I don't know if that's legit or not, but yeah, hopefully not.
Part of me feels, unfortunately, like that is real. I know that witches can enter into dreams that way. They can enter into the dream world and navigate, and they can terrorize you in your sleep.
So Freddy Krueger, basically.
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. And dreams, it's really hard to talk about because I have very vivid dreams. I've had prophetic dreams. Dreaming is very different to me than a lot of people. And I have met people like me who understand. They understand that, you have these dreams, and it is literally like you're alive and you're awake completely somewhere else, living a real situation. And then you wake up and you feel like you didn't even sleep at all. You feel like you were just up all night somewhere else in your other reality.
Wow.
And, but also it can feel like, visitors, it does feel like visitors can pop in, and sometimes those visitors are demonic. And I experienced that off and on a lot. It's been probably a few weeks since I've experienced it, but I would say like
a few weeks, you still experience it?
Yeah, I'd say about 70% of my dreams are nightmares. Yeah.
Huh. Jeez, that's fascinating. Interesting. Wow.
My wife
doesn't matter. Go ahead.
My wife and you should talk, because she struggles with that too.
It doesn't matter how right I'm living. Doesn't matter. I can be, donating to people and feeding hungry people and reading my Bible every day and keeping Sabbath. Doesn't matter. What has changed is seeing them while I'm awake. That has gone from like multiple times a day over the years to now it's like maybe once every like 5 or 6 months.
Huh. Are you talking about demons?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like the veil is like thinning, like for you, like you can actually see through the dimension. That's wow. Huh. Fascinating. You could definitely write a book or a couple, I'm sure.
Yeah, you should.
My brain isn't organized enough to write. My brain's so scattered. ADHD.
Well, me too. I'm trying to do that now, actually. So
if I had someone to help me organize it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
I challenge you right now to write it.
Oh no.
Yeah, Matt started to help me and inspire me to start writing, and I already got 3,500 words in like 2 or 3 days. So yeah.
I just need to sell someone my story. They can write
it. You can have a ghostwriter. Yeah, you have a ghostwriter. You don't have to write it. You can do a ghostwriter.
That's what I need.
Yeah, not to confuse that with all the demonic stuff we're talking about.
Right.
So here's a similar topic to astral projection, but not exactly the same. And there's a lot of famous people that really tap into it. So you can look at like the transition of people that before they were famous to being super famous, like Kanye West, like musicians or actors. They visualize what they want for so long, and then all of a sudden they manifest it.
Yeah.
And so
not only that.
What do you think about that?
There's literally like just like panels of like celebrities, like actors that are just like sitting at a coffee table situation and talking about their roles and behind the scenes, and they all talk about how that they like try to bring in and talk to the spirit of like the you know, like Elvis, for example, the guy that played Elvis in the new movie, like he started to talk to Elvis as if he was still alive, kind of thing, and try to get him to be part of his role in his acting in that movie. And Denzel Washington did it too, and like every major actor says it, that they directly talk to spirits and directly channel them. It's nuts, but yeah.
Beyonce talks about that before her shows. She literally feels them into her body.
Right. Yeah.
Wow, I've never heard that. I've seen that stuff about Denzel with Malcolm X, where he went to, I think he went to Malcolm X's grave and said, "Come on, Malcolm, help me out," and like pretty much like calling him to fill him with his spirit, like.
Yeah. Wow. Also, Jonathan Rumi did the same thing. So yeah, you shouldn't be watching Chosen.
Heath Ledger did that for Joker, and he killed himself after.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but the channel material. That's. I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. But
no, go ahead, brother. You good?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The channel material, like where it gets really crazy, is these people that are literally called channelers, like one of them in particular, Bashar and Abraham Hicks. And these people, they go on stage, and it's like sort of like a church service where they're at the very front and they're just talking amongst all the people. And basically they channel this entity. It's a possession, and Abraham Hicks is the entity's name, essentially. And I forget her name actually, but anyway, this entity comes inside of her and it just talks through her, and it's just talking about messages of the future and how to live your life and how to be happy and whole and all of this. But it really affects like everybody, because it's talking about things that directly involve like everybody and society and all of that. And it's just like really out there, but it all revolves around the whole idea of the golden age and bringing in these vibrations to lift up Mother Gaia, so the whole Earth can then transform and shift into the fifth dimension. And it also talks about aliens, right, of like these crafts that are being more and more visible to people, and that's the reason why they're coming out, is because soon they're going to reveal themselves. But right now, like the reason why that they haven't yet, and they have all these explanations, it's like, no, the Earth is still in its infancy and it's still in like the third or fourth dimension, and so the people themselves are also in the third or fourth dimension, and which means that if they stay in that dimensional state of consciousness, they won't be able to evolve when Mother Gaia evolves into the fifth dimension. And so what ends up happening is that the people that are still in third dimension, the sheeple, or the Christians, shall we say, they're going to want to kill themselves when the Earth shifts. And that's fine, because their soul's just not ready yet. So that's how they're going to convince everybody that it's okay to like kill Christians and to go the whole 9 yards, is because they think that dimensionally that's what they'll want. So it's so deceptive, so insane. Yeah, crazy, absolutely crazy.
I don't have anything to say about that.
I'm just gonna move on. All right, so we got another topic that's very interesting.
Oh yeah, Christ
consciousness. So basically, y'all can elaborate on this. So pretty much, this is the Messiah became an ascended master. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, Jesus.
It's a cray belief.
Yeah. So the New Age, basically the concept that Jesus is just another ascended master, like Krishna and Buddha and Dalai Lama and all of them, and that Christ consciousness itself is just an energy that we all can obtain through knowledge, which is light. So that's why they also call Lucifer the light bringer, because he's the one that brought knowledge to everybody else by freeing them from the prison, which was the garden. So yeah, Christ consciousness is basically the way out of the idea of Jesus being Jesus and how important he is.
Christ consciousness just has so many different. Everybody you talk to tells you it means something different. So honestly, I've had a hard time following what it even really is.
Oh, interesting.
I just know that it's hokey.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
weird.
it certainly is. It certainly is. Yeah, because in
not
the
scriptural. That was easy. Hit the easy button.
no, it's definitely not scriptural. But when I was talking about like the higher dimensions that people believe in, of this idea of like light beings out there, there's this concept of Ashtar Command, and it's basically these aliens. They're called Pleiadians, especially.
Wait. Are you talking about my next slide?
Oh. Yeah, that's the ones. Nice. That was a good lead up. I actually forgot that one was coming. I knew it was in there somewhere. I just didn't know it was up.
Yeah,
there.
it's the last one. That's funny. It worked out that way. It's worked out perfectly.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so anyway, the idea that these Pleiadian beings, they're good, positive beings that are closer to source intelligence. So essentially, they were also close to Christ consciousness. And people like Michael was the big one, the Archangel Michael. But archangels were just like in the New Age, it's like the higher echelons of consciousness, which we come from. So essentially, these beings, these Pleiadians, they would talk to humans and basically try to convince them that we can teach you how to be just like Jesus. Just like he walked on the earth. Like they do say and recognize that he was, he lived 2,000 years ago and all that. But they say that he was just another one of the other people that, walked 3,000 years ago and did these things for their people. And of course, the Zeitgeist goes into the detail about how they're all like, linked to the same kind of pattern, but that's all garbage. When I actually watched the investigation behind that, amazing.
Yeah, I got into Zeitgeist years ago.
Yeah, it's oh man, it's just ridiculous. All of that is just so stupid. But I guess we'll get to the last slide. The Pleiadians, that's like one of the cosmic civilizations out in in space. But then there's the Lyrans and the Andromedans, and these are just other beings that have joined up with the planets in the service of the infinite creator, which is a coalition. A group of different civilizations that come together to basically push the message of love and light that source intelligence is trying to get everyone to understand, so they can merge back with itself. And so they go throughout the galaxy and try to teach the other lesser developed planets the truth of love and light, and so they can merge back. Yeah, it's crazy.
I think some people also just use a blanket term and call them humanoids.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That would be one too, because like the humanoid aspect for me, it was always just like denoting the fact that it looked like the physical form of it had a head and hands and legs. Because we would call in the New Age the Draconian Empire, which were reptilians, and they were humanoid lizards basically. So
yeah, there's like different species, different types of aliens, and humanoid is like somewhere in between like the reptilian and human or whatever.
And of course there's ammo for that, because you see on the politicians in some of their videos, and like celebrities, they have the eye weird thing, and you got people like chewing glass and eating it and like not reacting at all, and it's like something's going on here. And then it's supported by
you had like Katy Perry's eye during the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, but I got to say, like, we live in a weird world, like, and that's the reason why I was kind of, convinced into a lot of these New Age things, because there is some weird stuff out there. I personally think that cloning exists. I think that's actually
absolutely.
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anything that the enemy can twist and think that he's the creator, they'll be able to somehow use that. So yeah, cloning makes sense to me. And there's so much stuff, but yeah. That's just
all right. I gotta put this up there for comic relief. Is Zuck a reptilian?
Yeah, Zuck a robotoid, or oh man, I don't know. Like
he's a something.
He's definitely a something for sure. I think he
so
definitely has been, I would say. Definitely.
Yeah, they got one more question before we jump off here. Do y'all have any parting words since y'all came out of the New Age, for anybody that might have a family member that's in it, or they might be practicing stuff themselves, like advice for somebody like that?
Yeah. I would just say personally that, like, don't talk to them like they're idiots, and don't like say that they're like demonic or possessed, because they're just gonna laugh in your face. Because I think that we
Yeah.
just have to kind of like understand and kind of feel out where people are in their paradigm, basically, and go from there. Just don't like, just be gentle with them, shall we say, and pray, obviously.
Before that, I want to answer a question that says, Morgan, have you had demons enter you while dreaming? And I would say most of the time, or pretty much all the time, it's external. They're just harassing me, taunting me, terrorizing me externally. But there was one time when I did become possessed in a dream, and I was aware that I was possessed, and I was screaming. So it was almost like, imagine, instead of how you kind of feel like you take up your whole body, right? Like you're in your whole body. Imagine if your body was like a house and you were only in one room of it. So I was like, it was almost like I was shrunken down really small inside of my body, and something else was, the driving force now. And I was trying to fight against the demon having control over my body while also trying to cry out for help, but nothing would come out. I couldn't get any words out. People were looking at me and asking me questions, and to them, it looked like I was just not responding to them. But on the inside, I was screaming, I was crying, I was kicking and punching, and also trying to prevent the demon for being able to speak for me or on my behalf. And it was probably one of the scariest things I've ever experienced. And when I woke up, I had a new heart for people who have experienced that in real life, because I've never experienced that while awake. And I can only imagine, what that would be like for that to be reality, not just a dream, but to wake up and actually live that experience. It was extremely terrifying. But yeah, it came out of me before I woke up in the dream, so I don't think I'm like possessed right now or anything.
Right.
But
That's I would say the Venom's probably triggering for you, isn't it? Like that movie, you know what I'm talking about?
Venom, yeah, no, I lump him in with Spider-Man. Yeah, no, they're both gone. They're both done. They don't exist to this household. No.
Yeah, for sure. Especially Venom, because it's directly, a possession, basically, right? Like,
yeah, it's very triggering, and they look like Venom. That's what they look like.
Yeah, I remember you said that in your video. It's fascinating, crazy.
And then, so if someone's trying to speak to someone in the new age, my advice would be, like Curtis said, don't tell them that they're stupid or that they're possessed or demonic or anything like that. Basically, they think they have found truth. They think they've been searching their whole life for truth, and they have finally found it, and they're going to cling to it for dear life. So you have to very gently say, listen, I understand. I used to believe everything you believe, and I thought it was true. I was deceived, and I can show you how you are being deceived. I can prove it to you. But I just need you to be open and receptive. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, or if you don't believe what I'm saying, just consider what I'm saying. You don't have to think I'm right. Just listen. Just give me the courtesy of listening to my words and plant the seed. You're not going to be able to just now. Every now and then, someone will radically change right in front of your eyes, but that's not going to be like
the norm.
What's mostly going to happen is you're going to plant a seed, and then other people are going to come along and water it along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like every person is. Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think there's a delay on my end. That's what's probably causing the issue. But I love both of y'all's responses, because I actually thought about when Morgan was sharing, just thinking about talking to people about the globe, because that is a topic that brings crazy out of people. And so if you don't come with understanding, if you don't operate in the fruit of the spirit, and you're just not patient with people, you're not loving, they're not going to be open. So it could be applied to any topic, especially since we're talking about the new age. If you, like, I have a friend, if I remember correctly, his sister is in the new age. So, I mean, if he goes to her say, you're demonic, you're tapping into all this demonic stuff, or if he comes like with what Morgan was saying, that approach, like that, they're going to be more open. Like, hey, I got something to share from my experience. Are you open real quick? Do you have a few minutes? I mean, you're going to get more traction with that approach. So,
yeah. Absolutely.
And that's why your testimony is so huge, because these people, scripture isn't truth and reality to them. So when you're talking to them from your own personal experience, first of all, they can't tell you that your experience isn't true. So you've almost disarmed them. The only thing that they can say is either that they don't believe you, or they can say, okay, well, that's your perception, or, well, that's your reality, that's your truth. And those are really the only defenses they have at that point, because they can't say you're lying. Right. They
Absolutely.
can't, I mean, I guess they could by saying they don't believe you, but like they can't argue with you based on anything like super concrete. So it really just turned into them saying, I'm rejecting what you're saying, rather than, well, that's from the Bible and I don't believe the Bible and blah, blah, blah. You're not going to win these people over. Now, you should throw scripture in there. You should make statements and then maybe show them in scripture where your statement's backed up by scripture. But if you just start screaming Bible verses at these people, they don't hear it. It doesn't mean anything to them.
Definitely not. Yeah, most people can't even like read the Bible for more than like an hour, or not even an hour. They can't even pick up the Bible, like, for some reason. Every other book they have no problem, but the Bible is just like, for some reason, a no. But one thing I would definitely say with that question, it's really important that, like, it's okay. I think personally, I could be wrong about this, but if my parents and like my family and my friends or whatever, like, if they started to like try to understand like what I believed, and like, kind of in depth a little bit into that, then like I would actually be more, close to thinking about what they believed, because it was like a back and forth kind of thing. Also, you could start to understand, okay, if they believe this, for example, for me, make this short, but the way that I got out of the New Age is that, when I found out that the Earth was actually flat, that's when it was like, oh, okay, so space doesn't exist. And like, for me, the New Age was all about star seeds and like, I'm from another planet and talking to other beings and all that. So if I could find evidence, if I could find evidence, like hard evidence that that's not the case, that space it doesn't exist. And then on top of that, the one thing that I needed to dismantle was aliens. And it's like, so what kind of thing that's tangible with a lot of evidence that I can compare to both sides and really know, for a fact with my logical thinking, because I'm really analytical. So like everyone's different, right? But for me, I compared alien abduction reports compared to demon possession, because like there's a lot of data on both sides. So I compared them directly, and it was just like night and day. It was like the same, like it was right in your face, and it was immediate at that point that they were just demons, and I was tricked. So
it was planets for me because of astrology. My whole life basically was astrology is real, and when you have your birth chart, you have a sign in every planet. So how can you have a sign in every planet if planets aren't planets? And so that was the hang up for me. Once I was able to reconcile that, it was fine. The rest of it was fine for me. It was just the planets for me.
Interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah,
interesting.
I'm just curious, how long did it take for you to, when you got into the faith? Was it like directly into Torah? For me, it was like 3 or 4 months before I got into Torah. I was just in normal church, basically, for a bit.
So flat Earth came.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I didn't mean to say the buzzword. Darn it. The shape of the Earth came into play for me before I started taking scripture super seriously. I started reading the Bible to find evidence of the shape of the Earth. Gotcha. Through reading the Bible for that purpose, I was able to find things that I already knew in the Bible. Like, I'll try to make this as short as I can, but when I was studying the childhood pokes for my son, I came across anti-circumcision groups, because the moms who are against the pokes are typically also, they're just very natural. So they're also against circumcision. They say, my whole baby. So I was studying circumcision, and this woman said, oh, this is new scientific evidence that if you don't circumcise your son, then they have no reason to give them vitamin K. Because they tell you that if you have a boy, the vitamin K is so they don't bleed out during circumcision. Oh. So I was like, wow, if you wait 8 days, then you don't have to get if you either don't circumcise them at all or wait until the 8th day, you don't need the vitamin K shot. And I remembered that for years. So then one day I was looking for Shape of the Earth verses, and I came across circumcise your sons on the 8th day. And I was stopped in my tracks because I was like, how did they know that? That's a new scientific discovery. How did they know that all the way back then? And then I was like, I wonder what else the Bible says about health. And so I started reading about pigs and shrimp and lobster. And I started looking into what it said about lesions on the body. And I was like, this is really advanced science from forever ago.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's what started Torah for me.
Wow, that's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's so cool how like it's like a very unique way that the Father just knows obviously how to get to each of us. Very cool.
So this was awesome. Thank you two for being on. And so again, go to the description, make sure to subscribe to their channels, and please do us all a favor and share this video. So if there's anybody you know in your life that might be dabbling into New Age, whether they're a believer of the scriptures or not. So this is very important information that and I'm very thankful these two lovely believers joined me because their stories were spicing it up.
Spicy.
So we're going to jump on there. Thanks everybody that was on. Thanks to mods for sharing all the links and everything. So shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
Bye.